Chapter 572. I'm going to leave this place for a few years. If you want to learn crafting artifacts, you cannot continue living here. Your flames are too dangerous. If I can detect it, then other people would also be able to detect it. Since you are now my disciple, you can live in my Baiqi artifact crafting store. Zhongli Baiqi spoke before taking out a mask and handing it to Ningcheng. When you go to the Immortal Jade Star, remember to use this mask to change your appearance and aura. Although Ningcheng did not understand why Zhongli Baiqi treated him so well, he knew that he had no other choice. He reached out and took the mask before asking, "Even if I wear this mask, I still don't have a celestial wheel, right?" You can solve the problem of celestial wheels by yourself. With your cultivation method, it would not be difficult to simulate a vague celestial wheel. If you can't do it, then don't even think about going to the Immortal Jade Star. Zhongli Baiqi spoke without hesitation. Ningcheng felt helpless. He felt sure that Zhongli Baiqi had a cultivation method to simulate a celestial wheel. However, the other party did not want to teach him. Ningcheng had no choice but to speak up. "I don't have a quota to go to the Immortal Jade Star." You can solve the quota yourself. If you can't even solve this problem, then you don't have to go to the Immortal Jade Star. Zhongli Baiqi's tone remained as unyielding as before. "Then Master, what do you want me to help you with in the future?" Ningcheng did not believe that Zhongli Baiqi would treat him so well for no reason. Zhongli Baiqi showed a sly smile, one big and one small eyes filled with pride. "You can rest assured that I will not let you die. Even if there is a danger of death, I will pull you out at the last moment." Hearing these words, Ningcheng's face immediately turned black. He felt sure that whatever this cheap master wanted him to do, it would not be a good thing. Zhongli Baiqi acted as if he did not see Ningcheng's expression. He stood up and patted his robes before speaking. "I'm leaving. When I'm not in the artifact crafting store, you have to take care of your junior apprentice sister. Also, after coming out of the Immortal Jade Star, if you can obtain the Starry Sky Wheel, please give it to me." After saying that, Zhongli Baiqi's figure faded away and soon disappeared from sight. Ningcheng stood up and muttered in a low voice, "Stop dreaming, I'm going for the Starry Sky Wheel. This can be discussed, but this place is not suitable for you to learn artifact crafting. If I hadn't helped you arrange a few array formations, someone would have discovered your flame a long time ago." Zhongli Baiqi's voice once again came from the distance. Ningcheng was shocked. What cultivation did this old man have? Regardless of Zhongli Baiqi's cultivation, Ningcheng knew that the other party's last sentence was correct. His grade 3 celestial array couldn't hide anything in this place. Previously, when he was immersed in the enlightenment of artifact crafting, he had brought out the celestial river to craft artifacts. Under normal circumstances, he would not take such a risk. Sighing, Ningcheng sat down in a decadent manner. To star he I. In just a few breaths, Ningcheng was so shocked that he almost stood up again. He was just thinking about how to simulate the celestial wheels when two vague shadows of celestial wheels appeared behind him. Ning Ning King Ning truly Ning powerful Ning. Ning Cheng Ning to Ning. This celestial wheel appeared out of nowhere, as if it was born from the heart. This was definitely the result of the formidable mysterious yellow formless cultivation method. Is this really a chaos cultivation method that transcends the starry sky of this universe? Celestial wheels could be born from the heart, which made Ningcheng feel relieved. Regarding Zhongli Baiqi's warning, Ningcheng also felt that it was necessary. He tidied up all the array formations in the house and prepared to head to Zhongli Baiqi's artifact crafting store. However, deep in his heart, Ningcheng still had some reservations about Zhongli Baiqi. As such, he did not mention anything about the mysterious yellow bead and the everlasting blue Thunder City. Zhongli Baiqi had accepted him as an apprentice, and it seemed that he needed his help. In comparison, Ningcheng believed in Songwei more. Moreover, Zhongli Baiqi only knew about the good fortune indestructible axe, while Songwei knew about all the good fortune treasures. In this regard, it seemed that Songwei had more knowledge than Zhongli Baiqi. Leaving the celestial rainbow rest stop, Ningcheng simply took out his communication pearl and sent a message to Zishjun. It had already been 4 or 5 months. Zishjun did not know if he had managed to obtain the jade card. If he had not obtained it, then he would have to find it himself. More importantly, he had asked Zishjun to inquire about the news. Zishjun quickly sent a message back to Ningcheng, asking Ningcheng to find him at the Culmination Public Square in the Eternal Heaven Starry Sky City. After receiving Zishjun's message, Ningcheng immediately dispelled the idea of going to the artifact crafting store. He knew about the Culmination Public Square, one of the top 10 public squares in the Eternal Heaven Starry Sky City, and also the largest public square. Ningcheng rushed to the Culmination Public Square as fast as he could. He had seen all kinds of starry sky public squares. Although the Culmination Public Square looked very grand, he did not feel anything special about it. Ningcheng had just arrived at the Culmination Public Square when his spiritual consciousness swept towards Zishjun. Zishjun was looking around, seemingly looking for him. Zishjun had recognized him several times, which made Ningcheng feel a bit of a knot in his heart. This time, he had used Zhongli Baiqi's mask to disguise himself as an ordinary Starry Skies wanderer. If Zishjun could still recognize him this time, then he could only say that Zhongli Baiqi's mask was nothing special. To Ningcheng's delight, he deliberately walked back and forth in front of Zishjun a few times, yet Zishjun still could not recognize him. This made Ningcheng feel refreshed. He walked up to Zishjun and stopped him. "Friend, I have something to discuss with you." Zishjun, who was looking for Ningcheng, immediately looked at Ningcheng with vigilance and asked, "Excuse me, what's the matter? Shouldn't you pay back the 10 billion purple coins you owe me?" Ningcheng's words scared Zishjun. 10 billion purple coins. Even if he sold himself, he would not have that many celestial coins. This person definitely came looking for trouble. Not waiting for Zishjun to speak, Ningcheng laughed and spoke. "Brother Zish, you don't recognize me this time, do you?" Zishjun stared at Ningcheng in shock for a while before speaking up in disbelief. "Your brother Ning, but how do you have a celestial wheel?" "And I always had a celestial wheel, but I hid it before. Let's not talk about it. My name is not Ningcheng now, but Wanderer. I've offended some people here, so Brother Zish, please help me." Ningcheng patted Zishjun's shoulder. Since Zishjun could not recognize him now, even if he changed his appearance in the future, Zishjun would still not be able to recognize him. Zhongli Baiqi really did have a few tricks up his sleeves. Zishjun finally calmed down and praised, "Brother Wanderer really is amazing. Let's go, let's find a place to sit down and talk." Ningcheng appreciated this aspect of Zishjun and never asked about it. Although Ningcheng was curious about his change in appearance and the appearance of his celestial wheel, he never asked about it. "Brother Zish, do you have any news about the female cultivator I asked you to inquire about?" Ningcheng couldn't help but ask before walking out of the public square. Zishjun smiled. "You really are a sentimental person. I thought that your first question would be about my quota jade card. I didn't expect you to ask about the female cultivator you fell in love with at first sight." Seeing Ningcheng about to speak, Zishjun quickly stopped in front of him and spoke. "You don't have to worry about it. I'm staying here to help you. I heard about that female cultivator. She's from 9 Jewels Starry Skies Everlasting Sacred Shrine. I'm afraid that this idea of yours will come to nothing. The disciples of the Everlasting Sacred Shrine are extremely noble, not something that ordinary people like us can curry favor with." "Where is she now?" Ningcheng eagerly asked. He did not care about Limitless or not. The first thing he wanted to know was whether that female cultivator was Qianghua or not. A few days ago, she and a few fellow disciples went to the 9x9 Celestial Scryer Tower, and have not come out yet. I wanted to see which floor she could reach before contacting you. I didn't expect you to contact me first, Zishjun said in a low voice. "What is the 9x9 Celestial Scryer Tower?" Zishjun understood that Ningcheng did not know much about this place and patiently explained. "The most famous place in the Eternal Heaven Starry Sky City is the Culmination Public Square, which is where we are now. However, the reason why the Zhongtian Plaza was famous was not because of the plaza, but because of the 3 towers. 9x9 Celestial Scryer Tower, Falling Celestial River Tower, Eternal Starry Sky Tower." Saying that, Zishjun pointed to 3 hazy clusters of mist in the distance and spoke. "Those are the 9x9 Celestial Scryer Tower, the Unfalling Celestial River Tower, and the Eternal Starry Sky Tower. Let's go and have a look." When Ningcheng heard that the female cultivator who looked like Qianghua had entered the 9x9 celestial scryer tower, he could not wait to go in and have a look. Ningcheng followed Zixjun to the front of the three towers. Spiritual consciousness could not sweep into these three towers at all, and only the outlines of the three hazy clusters of towers could be seen. On the periphery of the rightmost outline, there were 5 giant words suspended in the air: 9x9 Celestial Scryer Tower. The words Unfalling Celestial River Tower were suspended above the middle outline, while the words Eternal Starry Sky Tower were suspended above the leftmost outline. Apart from that, there were 3 gigantic spirit formation display screens around the 3 towers. Each spirit formation display screen had countless names on it. However, the names of the first 100 people were very large, highlighted in gold, while the names behind them were very small and densely packed together. From time to time, some people would walk into the mist surrounding the 9x9 Celestial Scryer Tower and the Unfalling Celestial River Tower. At the same time, some people would also get thrown out of the mist and fall onto the public square. Relatively speaking, only a few people entered the Eternal Starry Sky Tower. Ningcheng stood there for a long time, but did not see a single person enter. Seeing Ningcheng staring at the 3 towers in silence, Zixjun explained from the side. These 3 towers are places for people to comprehend Tao laws and train their cultivations. They are the most precious things in Culmination Starry Sky City. Moreover, there are no restrictions, allowing anyone to come and go at any time. Do you see those 3 array formation display screens? Each array formation display screen represents the ranking of one of the towers. The first 100 names are highlighted in gold, indicating that they are the strongest cultivators in the same realm. Ningcheng's gaze then fell on the first array formation display screen, which was the array formation display screen of the 9x9 Celestial Scryer Tower. It showed a name called Xiaoyu on the 71st floor, followed by the names of the spiritual heaven sect's disciples. Zixjun continued to whisper. Did you see that Xiaoyu? He is the person who climbed the highest in the 9x9 Celestial Scryer Tower so far. Not only is he a genius among geniuses, but he is also extremely confident that no one can compare to him. I heard that he has already advanced to the Celestial Bridge realm. However, to enter the Immortal Jade Star, he forcibly erased his cultivation and returned to the Celestial Gatherer realm. Chapter 573. How many floors does the 9x9 Celestial Scryer Tower have? Ningcheng asked. In his heart, he really admired this Xiaoyu. To think that he could forcibly erase his own cultivation. If this person was not confident to a certain extent, then he would never do such a thing. Zixjun replied. The 9x9 Celestial Scryer Tower has a total of 81 floors. The Falling Celestial River Tower has a total of 64 floors, while the Eternal Starry Sky Tower has a total of 49 floors. No one has been able to reach the top of any of the 3 pagodas. Ningcheng looked at the location of the 9x9 Celestial Scryer Tower and spoke. Brother Ziju, I asked you about the female cultivator who entered the 9x9 Celestial Scryer Tower a few days ago. Has she not come out yet? Yes, you don't want to go to the Celestial Scryer Tower, do you? In fact, you might not see her even if you went in. I think that you might as well wait here with me. Zixjun saw through Ningcheng's thoughts. Ningcheng was just about to speak when he heard someone next to him exclaim. A newcomer broke into the top 100. Ningcheng and Zixjun's gazes immediately turned towards it. Ningcheng had already seen the top 100 golden names in the 9x9 Celestial Scryer Tower. Now that he looked again, there was indeed a newcomer who had rushed up. The name in the 100th place had been changed to Sinfei. Behind Sinfei's name were the words Striking Order Starry Skies Bright South Celestial River, Golden Crow Sect, followed by 51st Step, and then the time spent on the 51st step. Because he had memorized the name list of the top 100, Ningcheng knew that the original 100th place was Bianjia, who had climbed to the 50th step, and had even stayed on the 50th step for 2 days. Now that Sinfei had ascended to the 51st step, he naturally wanted to push Bianjia out of the top 100. Sinfei had just entered the top 100. If he could stay a little longer on the 51st step, his ranking would definitely continue to rise. Wow, this is the first person from our striking order Starry Skies to enter the top 100. Zixjun exclaimed after seeing Xinfei's name. Ning Cheng casually asked from the side, who originally had the highest ranking in the striking order Starry Skies. Zixjun casually replied, his name is Wuxia, and his highest ranking in the 9x9 Celestial Scryer Tower is 932. Now that he has advanced to the Celestial River Level 3, I don't see him on the ranking list of the unfalling Celestial River Pagoda. Zixjun did not wait for Ning Cheng to answer, and hurriedly spoke up. Brother Wanderer, I have to hurry up and take care of something. I will also find a way to get your jade card. After I'm done with my business, I'll come here to see how many floors I can reach. Ning Cheng spoke up with gratitude. Brother Ziju, I'll be waiting here. If you have any good news, please let me know immediately. Don't worry. After saying that, Zixjun hastily walked out of Culmination Plaza. Xinfei rushing into the top 100 of the 9x9 Celestial Scryer Tower had stimulated him. Both of them were representatives of the striking order Starry Skies. Since Xinfei had rushed into the top 100, then if he rushed into the top 1,000, then it should not be a problem for him to catch up to Wuxia, right? Watching Zixjun leave, Ning Cheng did not delay for even a moment, and immediately entered the 9x9 Celestial Scryer Tower shrouded in a faint mist. Stepping into the mist, an incomparably clear door appeared in front of Ning Cheng. However, this door was tightly closed. In front of the gate was a tall jade stele. Ning Cheng was just thinking about how to enter the gate, when another cultivator came in. He directly walked past Ning Cheng and came to the side of the jade tablet, and wrote down his name and origin. Immediately after, the door opened. Ning Cheng's spiritual consciousness swept out, but could not sweep in. The cultivator who wrote down his name quickly entered the gate, and the gate closed silently again. Ning Cheng also walked to the side of the jade tablet, hesitated for a moment, and wrote down Wanderer on the jade tablet, followed by Jiangzhou. He was originally a wanderer from Earth. As such, there was nothing wrong with writing it like that. The gate in front of him opened again, causing Ning Cheng to feel overjoyed and immediately step inside. As soon as he entered the gate, a line of golden characters appeared in front of him. Those who retreat to the gate fail. Ning Cheng saw that he was only one step away from the gate, and quickly took a step forward. He had just lifted his foot when a powerful force blasted over. This force came so abruptly that Ning Cheng was almost pushed to the edge of the gate again. Ning Cheng's celestial essence immediately poured out and blasted away the incoming force, allowing him to stand firm. Amazing, he had just entered the first floor. If he got pushed out on the first floor, it would have been too shameful. After standing firm, Ning Cheng carefully released his celestial river domain. He had never been to the Celestial Scryer Tower before, and did not know what dangers lurked in this place. After a few breaths, Ning Cheng found that the first floor of the 9x9 Celestial Scryer Tower did not contain any other dangers except for the sudden force. Even if he was in the Celestial Novice Realm, as long as he could block that sudden attack, he could easily gain a foothold on this floor. The first floor of the Celestial Scryer Tower looked like a small aisle, surrounded by empty stones, with a blue stone path in the middle, which extended into the distance. Ning Cheng quickly adapted to the force, but it did not have any effect on him. Ning Cheng quickened his pace and quickly passed through the blue stone path, and arrived at the entrance of another gate. This gate had the words Celestial Scryer Tower second floor written on it. Ning Cheng showed a smile. This was too easy. He could easily reach the second floor of the Celestial Scryer Tower. He reached out to push open the gate leading to the second floor. Just as his hand was about to touch the gate, a roar erupted, and a starry sky wolf suddenly appeared at the gate. Ning Cheng wanted to pull back his hand, but it was too late. The starry sky wolf opened its mouth and swallowed it. At this moment, Ning Cheng's hand suddenly turned into an axe shadow, and a cluster of celestial river flames shot out from his axe shadow. A sharp scream erupted, and Ning Cheng's flame directly smashed the starry sky wolf into pieces. The moment the starry sky wolf disappeared, the gate leading to the second floor opened. This time, Ning Cheng was prepared and immediately stretched out his celestial river domain. The second floor's force was much stronger than the first floor's. But because Ning Cheng was prepared, Ningcheng's celestial river domain directly dispersed the force. Ningcheng's spiritual consciousness and celestial river domain allowed him to break through all the obstacles and reach the 18th floor. However, this 9x9 celestial scryer tower did not have much of a difference. Although the force on each floor increased, and the strength of the starry sky beasts on each floor increased, Ningcheng felt that it would not be difficult for him to rush to the 70th floor with his current strength. Ningcheng stepped into the 19th floor with this idea in mind. When he came in, his celestial river domain had already spread out. The force on each floor grew stronger, as long as his celestial river domain was prepared. What surprised Ningcheng was that his celestial river domain did not encounter any resistance this time, which meant that the 19th floor did not have any force. What happened? Ningcheng had just thought of this when a burst of murderous intent surged over. Endless starry sky blade lights mixed with all kinds of killing intent completely wrapped around Ningcheng. Even if Ningcheng brought out his celestial river domain, these starry sky blade lights still managed to break through Ningcheng's celestial river domain at a specific angle. Ningcheng immediately brought out the everlasting blue thunder fort. Ka-ka-ka-ka. Dense bombardment sounds fell on the everlasting blue thunder fort, causing Ningcheng to break out in cold sweat. If not for the everlasting blue thunder fort, he would have definitely suffered some injuries. The first wave of attacks had not yet ended when the second wave of attacks arrived. Then, a force twice as strong as the one on the 18th floor slammed into Ningcheng's body, forcing Ningcheng to take a few steps back and almost hit the door. So insidious. Ningcheng screamed in anger and quickly took a few steps forward. Fortunately, although the attacks on the 19th floor were dense, they were not very powerful. Apart from the force from the sneak attack, Ningcheng did not find it difficult to deal with them. After passing through the 19th floor, Ningcheng gained a clearer and more intuitive understanding of this celestial scryer tower. This celestial scryer tower seemed to have a consciousness, and was always ready to attack the people inside the tower. Moreover, it only had one purpose, to blow the people inside out. After passing through the 20th floor, the attacks grew even more powerful. In addition to the blade lights, there were also some void collapse attacks, fireballs and low-level killing array attacks. As for the attacks from the demonic beasts, they were even more numerous. However, these demonic beasts were composed of celestial essence chi, and would dissipate without a trace after being killed. Ningcheng's celestial river domain combined with his treasured thunder spear, coupled with the grade 5 blue thunder fort, made him almost invincible. As long as he remained cautious and did not get sneak attacked by the sudden thrust, he would not get blown out of the tower. Rushing all the way up, Ningcheng took turns to use the traceless spear and the nothingness flame pattern spear, which gave Ningcheng a vague feeling that his spear intent was on the verge of a breakthrough. The blade lights that continuously broke through the celestial river domain made Ningcheng realize that his domain was far from perfect. Boom! Ningcheng killed another starry skies demonic beast, and by this time, he had already reached the 40th floor of the 9x9 celestial scryer tower. Ningcheng, who had long prepared to resist and fight, found that this floor was extremely quiet. There were no sneak attacks from the blade lights, nor was there any terrifying thrust. Ningcheng subconsciously took a step forward. His consciousness seemed to have blurred for a moment before it became clear again. He then saw the person in front of him. Muwen. Ningcheng had just called out those two words when he recalled what Tian Muwen had said to him. Just call me by my name? You can also call me Little Tian. Tian Muwen looked at Ningcheng quietly. Although her face looked calm, her eyes were filled with sadness. Tian Muwen. Ningcheng added another word in a dry voice. Tian Muwen still looked at Ningcheng in a daze. Thank you for remembering that my surname is Tian. The two turned silent once again. After a long time, Tian Muwen suddenly lost her calm. She rushed in front of Ningcheng and stared at Ningcheng while crying. Why are you doing this to me? Have you ever liked me? Now that you're back, can't you even ask me if I'm okay or not? Why are you so arrogant? You're a big man. Why do you care about a little woman like me? I was so excited when I saw you again, but you treated me like a stone on the street. Have you ever asked me about my grievances? Ning Xiaoqing. Feral Brook Mountain, located on the edge of the southern heaven region. Since the insectide attack a few years ago, even fewer people came to this place. In a thatched cottage at the top of the Feral Brook Mountain, a delicate and pretty woman suddenly stood up with tears streaming down her face and murmured, "Why do I see you? Why is it so clear? Ning Xiaoqing." Chapter 574. Was this an illusion? As the mysterious yellow origin aura circulated around his sea of consciousness, Ningqing suddenly sobered up. But Tian Muwan was still in front of him. Was this not an illusion? Why are you here? Ningqing finally could not help but ask. I've been in the Feral Brook Mountains. Be careful. Tian Muwan suddenly exclaimed. Ningqing quickly swept out with the treasured thunder spear in his hand. With a crisp sound, two blade lights without even the slightest murderous intent shot out. With Ningcheng's spear sweeping out, a bang sound rang out. Ningcheng's surroundings suddenly became clear, and everything in front of him disappeared without a trace. Tian Muwan disappeared, and the surroundings once again returned to their original appearance. It was as if the scene had changed in an instant. Ningcheng tightly gripped the treasured thunder spear and did not move. He knew that what he had just seen was just an illusion. However, he felt that it was not a hallucination. Tian Muwan's words were not an illusion in his consciousness. Rather, it was really what Tian Muwan had said. There was no reason for this feeling, but it was extremely clear. He even saw the scene behind Tian Muwan. It seemed to be the Feral Brook Mountains, the place where he had once gone to search for the wood's spiritual source. What was going on? Ningcheng did not continue forward. Is it really an illusion? Tian Muwan slowly sat down. Ningcheng's aura was incomparably clear a moment ago. She could even feel his aura. But just as she reminded him to be careful, Ningcheng disappeared without a trace. In addition to the verdant Feral Brook Mountains, there was only the chirping of nightingales. I've already forgotten about you. Why do I still have this illusion? Why? Tian Muwan cried out in a hoarse voice. When she first came to the Feral Brook Mountains, it was because of Ningcheng. But as time passed, she got used to staying here. It was only when she obtained half a bead and a cultivation method in the Feral Brook Mountain that she came to know that there were still cultivators in this world. Is Ning Xiaoqing someone you like? A sudden voice interrupted Tian Muwan's grief. Tian Muwan suddenly turned around and saw a young girl wearing a yellow robe, who looked even younger than her. What shocked her was that the young girl didn't seem to be standing on the ground. Instead, she was floating in the air behind her. Who are you? Tian Muwan was panic-stricken in her heart. Since she could live in the Feral Brook Mountains, she naturally was not an ordinary woman. However, someone had already appeared behind her, and she was not even aware of it. Striking Order Starry Sky's newcomer Fei has reached the 97th rank. In front of the 9x9 Celestial Scryer Tower's ranking display on the Culmination Public Square, a large number of cultivators had already gathered. Everyone stared at Striking Order Starry Sky's Fei. 3 days ago, Fei had just rushed into the top 100, but in just 3 days he had already reached the 97th rank. One had to know that it was extremely difficult to rush into any of the top 100 positions, but this Fei had rushed from 100th to 97th in just 3 days. This was definitely strength. I didn't expect that the unremarkable Striking Order Starry Skies would have such a character. That's right. If it weren't for the Time Wilderness, I wouldn't have known that Grand Culmination Starry Skies had a small place called Striking Order. In the Zhongtian Square, all sorts of discussions arose, everyone staring at this Fei who had suddenly appeared out of nowhere. They were also discussing how high Fei could climb. The vast and boundless Striking Order Starry Sky had turned into a small place in this place. Little miss, I don't know where this Fei came from, but he managed to climb to the 52nd floor of the Celestial Scryer Tower. This fellow really wants to be in the limelight. I'm afraid that no one has ever been in the limelight like him recently. A young girl in a green robe spoke up. She, like the rest of the cultivators, was also staring at the 9x9 Celestial Scryer Realm's ranking display. Standing next to her was a female cultivator in a light blue robe. When this female cultivator heard the green-robed girl's words, she spoke up in disapproval. This Fei is indeed powerful. However, I think there is another fellow here who is even more powerful than him. It's just that you haven't noticed it yet." "Who?" the green-robed girl quickly asked. "It's the fellow ranked 437th. This fellow is on the 49th floor." The female cultivator in the light blue robe replied. "Wanderer from the Jiangzhou? Where is the Jiangzhou? Why haven't I heard of it before?" The green-robed girl spoke up in surprise. The blue-robed female cultivator replied, "I'm afraid it's a planet. This fellow did not write down which celestial river he came from, but it is definitely from the grand culmination starry skies. I came here a few days ago, and I remember the ranking list very clearly. Among the top tens of thousands of people, there is no one named Wanderer. I didn't expect that in just a few days, this fellow would suddenly appear on the 49th floor. Little miss, it seems that you found this Wanderer." The green-robed girl spoke as she glanced at the cultivators around her and spoke with some disdain. "These people really are idiots. Not a single one of them found a powerhouse like Wanderer. In a few days, when this Wanderer rushes to the top 50 floors, let's see how surprised these people would be." The blue-robed female cultivator shook her head. "No, there are definitely a lot of cultivators who know that Wanderer entered the 49th floor. Many of them did not say it out loud. Since these people are waiting here, maybe they are waiting for Wanderer to come out and win him over. Little miss, if Guild Master knows about this Wanderer, do you think he would call him to our Chamber of Commerce? Right, there is also that Xin Fei." This time, before the green-robed girl could finish her words, the blue-robed female cultivator snorted. "Call him to our Chamber of Commerce, and then see if this genius is worthy of becoming my Dao companion, right? No matter what kind of genius he is, I will find my own Dao companion. My father can't make that decision." "But little miss, you have been looking for him for so long. Yet there is no news at all. Moreover, the guild master is also very anxious about this matter in case." The green-robed female cultivator spoke with concern. The blue-robed girl spoke up with hatred. "I can only say that although so many geniuses have come this time, I haven't seen many hard bones. The last time I saw a fellow who dared to crash into my starry sky battleship, I thought that he would be a hard bone. I didn't expect that fellow to rather pay 100 million green coins than speak even half a word of nonsense. Little miss, I'm afraid it would be a bit difficult for you to find a Dao companion like this." "Then how can I find one? Master said that if a cultivator's bones are not hard enough, their achievements will eventually be limited. Besides, a cultivator with soft bones, just looking at them makes me feel uncomfortable." Ning Cheng was indeed on the 49th floor. The reason why he stayed on the 49th floor for 3 days and did not go up was because Ning Cheng did not want to go up. If it were just the endless tangible blade lights and the waves of pushing force, Ning Cheng would have already entered the 50th floor. However, for Ning Cheng, he chose to stay on this floor because he felt a vague spiritual consciousness attack on this floor. This was the first time he had encountered a spiritual consciousness attack. Moreover, these attacks were invisible and invisible. Sometimes they would suddenly stab into his body, which made him understand that these were not blade lights or other attacks, but spiritual consciousness attacks. Spiritual consciousness attacks were faintly discernible, while his domain could not resist even half a point of spiritual consciousness attacks. In the face of this invisible spiritual consciousness attack, he had no other choice but to condense his spiritual consciousness to block it. If it were an ordinary cultivator, facing this kind of spiritual consciousness attack, the first thing they would think of was to rush out of the 49th floor and enter the 50th floor. After all, the longer one stayed on the 49th floor, the greater the pushing force and attack power. However, Ning Cheng did not enter the 50th floor. Firstly, he had a strong resistance, which allowed him to stay on the 49th floor. Secondly, he wanted to find some signs of this spiritual consciousness attack. Ning Cheng's sea of consciousness was quite powerful. As such, he had long since thought about using his spiritual consciousness to attack his opponents. Unfortunately, although his spiritual consciousness could work with his domain, coupled with his killing intent and killing power, he still could not form a real attack. Now that he finally felt a real spiritual consciousness attack, how could he let it go? Within the celestial scryer tower, A spiritual consciousness attack could not take his life. At most, it could only push him out of the celestial scryer tower. In case he met a real spiritual consciousness attack expert in the future, he would not have any defensive ability. It would truly be terrifying. 2 days ago, the spiritual consciousness attacks on the 49th floor were still sparse. However, the further he went, the stronger the spiritual consciousness attacks became. These spiritual consciousness attacks were invisible and invisible. Even if Ningcheng's celestial river domain fully stretched out, he could not block these invisible spiritual consciousness attacks. In the beginning, the spiritual consciousness attacks were not dense, and Ningcheng could barely block 1 or 2 of them. But as he stayed on this floor longer and longer, the spiritual consciousness attacks also grew stronger and more intense. Invisible spiritual consciousness thorns and spiritual consciousness blades bombarded Ningcheng's body, tearing apart Ningcheng's robes. Sounds of flesh and bones breaking rang out, forcing Ningcheng to operate the mysterious yellow body forging cultivation method, while continuing to condense his spiritual consciousness to resist. Ka. As more and more of Ningcheng's bones broke, he found it difficult to even stand up. Ningcheng did not even think about standing up. This was the first time he felt the benefits of using spiritual consciousness attacks to temper his corporeal body. His body had sustained injuries from the endless spiritual consciousness attacks, which then healed under the powerful body forging cultivation method. Not knowing for how long, Ningcheng suddenly stood up. He did not know when the injuries on his body had completely disappeared, but his corporeal body had unknowingly reached the peak state of a rank 9 god body. The blade lights and spiritual consciousness attacks still remained around him. However, these spiritual consciousness attacks could no longer cause any harm to Ningcheng. Ningcheng felt very satisfied. The 9x9 celestial scryer tower truly was a good place for cultivation. Not to mention that his spiritual consciousness had improved by leaps and bounds. Even his body forging cultivation method had reached the peak of a rank 9 god body. Unfortunately, he did not have a higher level body forging cultivation method. As such, his body forging cultivation method could only stop here. It did not matter if he could not comprehend the spiritual consciousness attacks. The 9x9 celestial scryer tower still had many floors. He did not believe that the spiritual consciousness attacks only existed on the 49th floor. After the 49th floor, the path ahead was no longer a flat bluestone path, but a series of bluestone stairs. Ningcheng's celestial river domain stretched out and blasted away the surrounding force. In just a few steps, he reached the top of the 49th floor, and pushed open the door to the 50th floor of the celestial scryer tower. Chapter 575. Hey, someone else entered the 50th floor. What's going on these days? As soon as Ningcheng entered the 9x9 celestial scryer tower's 50th floor, someone on the culmination public square immediately exclaimed. As this voice rang out, almost everyone immediately noticed the name Jiangzhou's Wanderer. What kind of place was Jiangzhou? After Ningcheng entered the 50th floor, this place immediately aroused discussions among the surrounding cultivators. Unfortunately, even after discussing for a long time, no one knew where Jiangzhou was. No, he entered the 51st floor and rushed into the top 100. The voices of discussion quickly turned into shock as Ningcheng rushed to the 51st floor. He's still going up without any hindrance. He's already reached the 52nd floor. At this time, the people on the public square no longer felt shocked, but horrified. Even when Xiao Yu entered the celestial scryer tower, he was not this strong. Many cultivators kept sending out messages, telling their friends that a heaven-defying cultivator had rushed to the 52nd floor of the celestial scryer tower. Moreover, it did not take long for him to enter. When Ningcheng rushed to the 53rd floor, almost the entire eternal heaven starry sky city was shocked. Countless cultivators poured into the culmination grand public square. Even some starry sky level sex powerhouses came to this place. Fortunately, the culmination public square was quite spacious. Therefore, after these cultivators poured in, it did not feel crowded. Who is Wanderer? Which starry sky does he represent? Which celestial river is Jiangzhou star? Which starry sky is he from? At this time, the entire culmination public square was talking about one person, Wanderer. All of them were talking about one place, Jiangzhou. The previously dazzling Xinfei had long since been forgotten by the people. In front of this powerful wanderer, what was Xinfei? He reached the 64th floor, and his ranking has already entered the top 10. Heavens, in just one day, he jumped from the 49th floor to the 64th floor. It's just too terrifying. Even snapping Ascension Starry Skies Duan Muchang, who was ranked in the top 10, has been pushed out of the top 10. Duan Muchang is already here. I wonder if he will enter the Celestial Scryer Tower again and continue to attack the top 10. Duan Muchang had indeed arrived. He calmly looked at Wanderer's name, which had pushed him out of the top 10. No one could tell what he was thinking. Some of the cultivators who knew Duan Muchang did not dare to talk to Rui Muchang at this time. He seems to have stopped at the 64th floor. The cultivators on the plaza soon discovered that Wanderer's name had stopped rising. At this moment, several cultivators who entered the Celestial Scryer Celestial Tower were teleported out. The moment the cultivators landed on the ground, the surrounding cultivators swarmed forward to ask if the cultivators who were teleported out were Wanderers. Wanderer's name was no longer rising, which meant that he would be teleported out at any moment. Don't ask anymore. It's obvious that Wanderer hasn't come out yet. Look, the time behind him keeps increasing. If he comes out, then time will stop, someone in the plaza said. Ning Cheng had indeed stayed on the 64th floor, but from the 49th floor onwards, the spiritual consciousness attacks he received were getting more and more powerful. In addition to the spiritual sense attacks, there were also the attacks of different space demonic beasts and killing arrays. This made Ning Cheng dispel the idea of staying on a certain level to temper his spiritual consciousness, as he continued to block these attacks, while at the same time constantly rushing upwards. Tian taking the vat out, and the stage Cheng Ling Ping happening he of the street in. Ning Cheng did not feel disappointed. As he rushed up one floor after another, the traces of his traceless spear grew fainter. After blasting out with his nothingness flame pattern spear, even the flame patterns started to hide within his celestial river domain. The attacks in the Celestial Scryer Tower seemed to be making up for his lack of spirit techniques, and constantly helping him perfect his attacks. Facing all kinds of spiritual consciousness attacks, Ning Cheng's celestial river domain also gradually became more complete. Although he had not yet deduced his own spiritual consciousness attacks, his celestial river domain could already detect them. As such, he no longer had to take a beating. When he reached the 64th floor, Ning Cheng felt that whether it was his spear techniques or his celestial river domain, both had reached a new level. For Ning Cheng, the trial in the Celestial Scryer Tower was much more beneficial than the arena. No wonder these three towers had such a resounding reputation. When he advanced to the Celestial River realm in the future, he would definitely go in and take a look at the Celestial River Tower. The reason why Ning Cheng chose to stay on the 64th floor was that he felt an attack on his sea of consciousness as soon as he came to this floor. Although it was also a spiritual consciousness attack, it was completely different from the spiritual consciousness attacks on the previous floors. This was a deeper level of spiritual consciousness attack that could directly attack his sea of consciousness. The moment his sea of consciousness felt the attack, Ning Cheng decided to stay on this floor and continued deducing the spirit techniques for spiritual consciousness attacks. Rushing into the Celestial Scryer Tower was not his goal. What he wanted to gain from the Celestial Scryer Tower was what he wanted. Although the spiritual consciousness attacks hit his body, they did not cause much damage. What's more, Ning Cheng's celestial river domain could now sense spiritual consciousness attacks. Therefore, after bringing out the everlasting Blue Thunder City, he could now block many spiritual consciousness attacks. However, the most frightening thing was the spiritual consciousness attacks that bombarded his sea of consciousness. This kind of attack caused Ning Cheng's sea of consciousness to roar and tumble about. The pain caused by the bombardment of his sea of consciousness turned even more torturous, something that ordinary people would not be able to endure. If not for his starry sky sea of consciousness's tenacity, his sea of consciousness would have collapsed sooner or later. In the face of such terrifying sea of consciousness attacks, Ning Cheng only had one choice in this place: that is to speed up and rush to the 65th floor. Ningqing did not come here to rush to a higher floor, but to gain insights into his spirit techniques and Tao laws. The spiritual consciousness attacks on the 64th floor could already bombard his sea of consciousness. Therefore, after reaching the 65th floor, the attacks on his sea of consciousness would definitely be much more powerful. Ningqing put away the everlasting Blue Thunder City. He did not put away the everlasting Blue Thunder City to resist the attacks on his body, but to block the spiritual consciousness attacks in his sea of consciousness. Even if his body suffered heavy injuries, he could slowly recover. Once his sea of consciousness suffered serious injuries, it would be extremely difficult to recover. What's more, his treasured thunder spear had transformed into a spear net, which combined with the celestial river domain. As such, those blade lights could at most cause minor injuries to his body. At this time, Ningqing started to admire Xiaoyu even more. Since Xiaoyu managed to rush to the 71st floor, it showed just how powerful this fellow's sea of consciousness was. His sea of consciousness, which was originally roaring and tumbling, finally turned a lot better with the addition of the everlasting Blue Thunder City. Although the everlasting Blue Thunder City could not block all the sea of consciousness attacks, it could block most of them. The remaining attacks did not have much impact on Ningqing's starry sky sea of consciousness. With Ningqing blocking the attacks on his sea of consciousness and body, the various attacks on the 64th floor of the celestial scryer tower, and Ningqing's defenses formed a balance. Occasionally, one or two spiritual consciousness attacks would fall on Ningqing's body, but Ningqing did not bother to care about it. With his powerful corporeal body with a grade 9 god body, these occasional injuries did not affect him in the slightest. At this time, Ningqing only cared about his starry sky sea of consciousness. His spiritual consciousness and concentration were completely focused on his starry sky sea of consciousness. Ningqing's everlasting Blue Thunder City managed to block some of the spiritual consciousness thorns and invisible spiritual consciousness blades shot out by the celestial scryer tower, while some of them failed to block. These unblocked attacks left marks on Ningqing's starry sky sea of consciousness from time to time. Every time his sea of consciousness suffered an attack, Ningqing's body would twitch subconsciously. This kind of sea of consciousness attack was comparable to a soul attack. If not for Ningqing's starry sky sea of consciousness being too powerful, any other cultivator would not have been able to persist until now. Time passed by bit as Ningqing continued to endure the pain. It was already the 7th day since Ningqing entered the 64th floor. At this moment, some cultivators in the culmination public square started to wonder if Ningqing could reach the 65th floor. It looks like he can only reach the 64th floor. What a pity! Even if he stayed on the 64th floor for a year, he would not be able to compare to the 65th floor. Staying on the 64th floor for 7 days is already amazing. I'm sure that once this person comes out, he would definitely be a powerhouse. All sorts of discussions could be heard. A bearded man became impatient when he heard the discussions around him. He coldly snorted. What do you guys know? Staying on the 64th level for 7 days is much harder than entering the 65th level. What a bunch of ignorant fools. Hearing someone call them ignorant, the cultivators immediately felt dissatisfied. The cultivator who said that Ningqing could only reach the 64th floor wanted to scold back. However, when he saw the bearded man, he immediately swallowed his words. He knew this bearded fellow, Grand Culmination Starry Skies Celestial Scryer Powerhouse, Ling Huqi. This person was not only a powerhouse ranked in the top 100 of the Celestial Scryer Tower, but also in the top 10 ranking 6th. Ling Huqi was someone who managed to reach the 66th floor of the Celestial Scryer Tower. As such, he was clearly qualified to speak such words. Many thanks for the advice, Senior Apprentice Brother Linghu. I thought it would be easy to stay on the 64th floor and not move. After recognizing Ling Huqi, the male cultivator quickly cupped his fists and greeted him. Ling Huqi gave a cold snort and stared at the ranking display screen. He did not intend to answer at all. Senior Apprentice Sister E. This wanderer looks very powerful. He actually managed to reach the 64th floor, and even stayed on the 64th floor for 7 days. Master said that after reaching the 64th floor of the Celestial Scryer Tower in the Eternal Heaven Starry Sky City, one would encounter a sea of consciousness attack. How did he manage to withstand it? A young girl with a veil over her face, like the surrounding cultivators, stared at the display screen and spoke up in shock. The female cultivator beside her, called Senior Apprentice Sister E, also wore a veil over her face. She also spoke up in admiration. Once this person comes out, countless sects and starry skies would definitely rush to curry favor with him. This kind of person can enter any starry sky and come out as a starry sky powerhouse. However, this might not necessarily be a good thing for him. Why? The young girl asked in doubt. Senior Apprentice Sister E whispered in the young girl's ear. Junior Apprentice Sister Cheong, think about it. Once this kind of genius is discovered, without a strong backer, do you think others would want to possess him or cultivate him? Junior Apprentice Sister Cheong shuddered, and suddenly felt some sympathy for this wanderer from Jiangzhou. Although he was currently in the limelight, if he did not have a strong backer, it would be hard to predict his fate. Chapter 576. Was this the underworld crow ghost Rat Tan? Ningcheng raised his hand and grabbed the small section of the underworld crow ghost Rat Tan. He had obtained it when he, Xiao Bixing and Mu Ziming had chased after Jia Shisan. Initially, they had been trapped in the blue hole by the underworld crow ghost Rat Tan King for decades. Later, his flame leveled up and destroyed the underworld crow ghost Rat Tan King. Then he obtained a lump of wood essence and a small section of the gray underworld crow ghost Rat Tan branch. A strong wood-attributed aura filled Ningcheng's senses. Ningcheng immediately gave up on the idea of using the treasured thunder spear to blast open a path. For a powerhouse, it was possible to blast open the viscous space in front of him with a weapon and reach the 70th floor. However, Ningcheng did not want to do so. He had a feeling that he could use a simpler method to pass the 69th floor. If he did not have the mysterious yellow formless cultivation method, he would not be able to condense a spiritual consciousness shield and a spiritual consciousness blade light. At that point, it would be impossible for him to go up again. Ningcheng felt as if he was sitting on a boundless prairie, completely surrounded by dense grass. These grasses completely blocked his way forward and retreat, causing him to be unable to breathe. It also felt like he was in the heart of a tree. As the tree continued to grow, the heart of the tree would eventually grow fully, leaving no room for him to survive. Mysterious yellow formless and shapeless, born from the heart. As long as one could comprehend it, success would follow naturally. Was this a primal chaos cultivation method? Ningcheng felt a huge sense of happiness, which made him feel invincible. From the looks of it, once he got out, he could study the body forging cultivation method in the starry skies, and then try out the formless and formless cultivation method. In just half a day, Ningcheng rushed past the 66th floor and entered the 67th floor. As long as it did not help him in comprehending his cultivation, he would never waste time on this floor. If he stayed, then this level would definitely be helpful to his cultivation, or perhaps it would be helpful to his comprehension. The small section of the underworld crow ghost Rat Tan branch in Ningcheng's hand quickly grew and quickly spread out, stretching out one after another. Ningcheng sat down, and the viscous space around him constantly squeezed him, as if wanting to melt him in this viscous space. At this moment, Ningcheng's celestial river domain not only resisted the surrounding viscous pressure, but also penetrated into the thick wood-attributed pressure. He couldn't condense his spiritual sense to attack, because his spiritual sense was invisible. He couldn't condense this invisible thing into a tangible one. The wildfire will never be able to extinguish it, and it will grow again with the spring breeze. When Ningcheng pushed open the door to the 69th floor, he unexpectedly found that there were no attacks coming from this floor. When he stepped in, it was as if he had stepped into a hard rock. The entire space was solidified and sticky. Ningcheng didn't know if these guys had a spiritual consciousness cultivation method or not. Regardless of whether they had such a spiritual consciousness cultivation method or not, he had to be careful when he encountered these guys in the future. Ningcheng did not stop at the 65th floor. As he walked towards the 66th floor, he couldn't help but marvel at the vast universe. Sure enough, powerhouses were as common as clouds in the sky. Divine sense attacks were invisible and formless, so why did he care about this formless thing? Let's just pretend that it's tangible. The scenes on the returning to one leather scroll also constantly flashed in Ning Cheng's mind. His cheap master Baichi had once said that all living things came from the same source, and all living things came from the same source. After the flames burned it down, new weeds would quickly grow out. However, it would take time for the ashes to turn into new weeds. During this period of time, he could easily rush out of the 69th floor and enter the 70th floor. After another day, Ning Cheng could not only condense an invisible spiritual consciousness shield, but he could also condense spiritual consciousness thorns and spiritual consciousness blades with just a thought. Ning Cheng stepped onto the 65th floor of the Celestial Scryer Tower and found that the spiritual consciousness attacks here were much more powerful compared to the 64th floor. The attacks within his sea of consciousness also came in waves. Ning Cheng took in a deep breath. He felt sure that if he had not comprehended spiritual consciousness attacks and spiritual consciousness defenses, he might not have been able to hold on against such powerful spiritual consciousness attacks, coupled with the visible blade lights and demonic beasts outside. Starting from the 64th floor to the 68th floor, the only difference was that the various attacks and the pushing force were getting stronger and stronger. However, these things did not pose a problem to Ning Cheng. His strength was already much stronger compared to ordinary celestial gatherer cultivators. As Ning Cheng thought about it, he pushed open the door to the 66th floor. On the 66th floor, apart from the spiritual consciousness attacks, there were also a few grade 4 starry sky demonic beasts. Celestial Scryer Tower, I really love you to death. Ning Cheng almost wanted to rush over to the tower's door and kiss this Celestial Scryer Tower. He did not know how many times he had tried to condense his own spiritual consciousness to attack, but he had never succeeded. This time, he had inadvertently entered the 9x9 Celestial Scryer Tower and suffered the torture of spiritual consciousness attacks before finally succeeding. Ning Cheng had just grasped the Underworld Crow Ghost Rattan's branch in his hand when the Underworld Crow Ghost Rattan's branch jumped up in his hand. At the same time, the Underworld Crow Ghost Rattan's branch absorbed the seemingly endless wood-attributed aura. He absolutely could not allow this scourge to grow again. Ning Cheng had personally witnessed the fearsomeness of this thing. The green-robed girl seemed to have seen through the young miss's thoughts, and quickly spoke up. "Young miss, I think that this wanderer meets the requirements of the young master. Do you think the guild master will invite him back when he finds out about this? Since everything came from the same source, and celestial essence could condense into fireballs, blade lights, and even various spirit techniques, why not treat his spiritual consciousness as a tangible form of celestial essence?" Ning Cheng had just formed this thought when his mysterious yellow formless once again completed a new circulation. It was a cultivation method. No, it was a spirit technique or a magical skill. It was just like when he thought of celestial wheels. The mysterious yellow formless immediately simulated celestial wheels. At this moment, a small round shield formed in his sea of consciousness. However, now that he understood spiritual consciousness defense and spiritual consciousness attack, he could condense one spiritual consciousness shield after another and spiritual consciousness blade lights with just a thought. As such, this kind of attack would not cause much harm to him. I think he would stay here for at least 8 or 9 days, right? Do you want to bet on it? I think he would stay for at most 3 days before entering the 66th floor, or at least teleporting out. Unfortunately, he could not verify the power of his spiritual consciousness blade lights at this time. In this place, he could only use the spiritual consciousness blade lights he condensed to fight against the spiritual consciousness attacks coming from the Celestial Scryer Tower. However, that Xiaoyu unexpectedly climbed to the 71st floor. Not to mention Xiaoyu. Even that fellow named Zhu Guang had reached the 70th floor. In addition to that, the third-ranked Ao Hashan climbed to the 69th floor, while the fourth-ranked Qi Diaoxian climbed to the 68th floor. At this moment, a small gray-black branch in his ring exuded a wood-attributed aura. Ning Cheng suddenly opened his eyes. He was so excited that he was trembling. After being tortured by this spiritual consciousness attack for 7 days, he finally condensed a small shield with his spiritual consciousness. It was this spiritual consciousness shield that managed to block a spiritual consciousness thorn. At this time, Even the sect masters of some starry sky sects felt alarmed. Although they did not come in person, they sent people to inquire about the identity of this genius who had appeared out of nowhere. No, this underworld crow ghost Rattan King wanted to regenerate its vitality? Ningcheng thought back to how he had been trapped by the underworld crow ghost Rattan King for decades. How could he be willing to let the underworld crow ghost Rattan King regenerate its vitality? The next moment he brought out his celestial river flame. He wanted to burn this underworld crow ghost Rattan King to a crisp. The treasured thunder spear turned into a spear shadow and shot out. This spear shadow blasted apart the surrounding viscous space, allowing Ningcheng's foot to finally land on the ground. But a moment later, the surrounding space turned viscous again, as if it wanted to squeeze him into this space. Well, that's right. I've taken a fancy to him. I'm going to send a message to my father now. He and I are fated. The young lady in the light blue robe didn't know what it meant to be reserved. As she spoke, she took out her communication pearl. That wanderer entered the 65th floor. I didn't expect him to stay on the 64th floor for almost 9 days before entering the 65th floor. Strong. At this moment, a thought suddenly rose in his mind. It felt as if as long as he brought out his celestial river flame, this endless grass would turn to ashes. Then, the space in front of him turned empty, without the weeds blocking his way. Ningcheng stood up. He knew that staying on this floor would no longer make any sense. He had already achieved his purpose. With the success of the first attempt, Ningcheng once again condensed an invisible spiritual consciousness shield. Ningcheng condensed one spiritual consciousness shield after another. In the beginning, these spiritual consciousness shields and spiritual consciousness thorns collided and shattered at the same time. But as Ningcheng condensed more and more spiritual consciousness shields, the spiritual consciousness shield managed to block the spiritual consciousness thorns and even the spiritual consciousness blades. The spiritual consciousness shield remained intact. Boom. Ningcheng did not have time to rejoice when a spiritual consciousness thorn within his sea of consciousness slammed into the small invisible shield, causing it to tremble. The spiritual consciousness thorn shattered, and at the same time, the invisible shield also turned into nothingness. How long do you think he will stay on the 65th floor? Ningcheng brought out the treasured thunder spear and swept it all the way. Even if he encountered a grade 4 starry sky demonic beast, it would turn to ashes under the maximal flame spiritual technique. As for the dusk spiritual technique, Ningcheng had never used it since entering the celestial scryer tower. However, just as this thought rose in Ningcheng's heart, he quickly suppressed it. This was not his original intention. If he wanted to destroy it, then he should destroy it completely. To cut the weeds, he had to remove the roots. If he did not destroy it, then he would be his friend. The female cultivator standing next to the green-robed girl felt so excited that her eyes turned red. She really did not read it wrong. Whether she was the first person to discover Jiangzhou's wanderer or not, she was definitely one of the first people to discover him. What was fate? Was this not fate? Cultivators who could set foot on the 65th floor definitely had a tough bone to pick. The grass on the plains withered and flourished every year. Although his spiritual consciousness shield and the attacking spiritual consciousness thorn shattered at the same time, it was at least a start. Little miss, you really have a good eye. You were the first person to discover this Jiangzhou's wanderer, and now this fellow actually set foot on the 65th floor. It's just too terrifying. The green-robed girl, who had talked about Ningcheng before, on seeing Ningcheng enter the 65th floor, exclaimed once again. Since discovering that Ningcheng had entered the 50th floor, they, like the other cultivators, had not left the public square. Although more and more people came to the public square, because Ningcheng had stayed on the 64th floor for too long, the public square felt a little dull. Now that Ningcheng set foot on the 65th floor, the public square once again turned lively. Bets, discussions, envy, worship. Chapter 577. Should he rush in and quickly pass through this floor, or stay here to see if the celestial river flame could advance? Oh, it's nothing, just a little surprised. Junior apprentice Sister Cheong quickly explained. Only she knew in her heart that it was not a surprise, but a horror. I understand, it's the 70th floor. The 70th floor of the celestial scryer tower is filled with fire spirit sources. That wanderer entered the 70th floor, but how did he cause such a big commotion? A cultivator on the public square exclaimed. What happened? The cultivators standing on the public square stared at the celestial scryer tower in shock. The celestial scryer tower had stood on the culmination public square for many years without any changes. However, the cultivators on the public square suddenly saw a faint flame erupt from the celestial scryer tower. The conversation between the two cultivators next to Zish Jun made him even more frightened. He did not know the cultivator who invited Ning Cheng to come with him. However, he recognized the robes worn by that cultivator. It was from the god-sacrificing sect. The cultivators from the god-sacrificing sect could seize bodies as easily as breathing. Many cultivators with excellent qualifications, after entering the god-sacrificing sect, would end up being seized by the powerhouses. The threat of death came over, causing Ning Cheng's mind to tremble. For the first time, Ning Cheng felt fear. He had a feeling that his maximal flame spiritual technique had stirred up trouble. Using the maximal flame spiritual technique in this place, although its power was unstoppable, he could not stop it. He could not control this terrifying maximal flame spiritual technique. With this kind of whirlpool-like flame, even if Ning Cheng's body was twice as strong, it would still turn to ashes. No, he didn't die. That wanderer didn't die. He actually entered the 71st floor. Heavens, he's going to become the strongest person in the celestial scryer tower. If Zhang Wei had just taught him the maximal flame spiritual technique, he could only use it to absorb the surrounding fire attributes and create false spatial collapses. Now he could create some real collapses. Is it going to recognize me as its master? Ning Cheng subconsciously spoke up. The underworld crow ghost Rot Tan, on seeing him bring out the celestial river flame, immediately wanted to recognize him as its master. Sure enough, it really is a sentient thing. Ning Cheng showed a smile and felt in a good mood. Although there were many people in the plaza who were jealous of the wanderer from Jiangzhou, there were even more people who felt that it was a pity. Such a powerhouse. If not for the celestial scryer tower's flames burning him to death, he would have definitely achieved great things in the future. Ning Cheng felt horrified in his heart. His celestial river flame could not block the flames from the celestial scryer tower. In Ning Cheng's opinion, his celestial river flame had already been upgraded to the peak. Yet, it still couldn't block the flames in this place. From this, it showed just how terrifying the flames in this place were. Raising his hand and throwing the underworld crow ghost Rot Tan into the miniature world ring, Ning Cheng walked up to the 70th floor, as if he was taking a leisurely stroll. Unfortunately, he did not know that Ning Cheng was able to reach the 69th floor, and was even ranked third. If he knew that Ning Cheng had this kind of ability, he would have definitely told Ning Cheng not to climb so high. You're just an itinerant cultivator with no backing and no one to rely on. Aren't you courting death by climbing so high? Even if he wanted to climb, he had to find someone to rely on first. Boom boom. The moment Ning Cheng disappeared, the place where he stood completely turned into a void collapse. The terrifying flames even burned away the void collapse. This wasn't a fake void collapse formed by the maximal flame divine technique, but a real void collapse. Jiang Prefecture's wanderer actually climbed to the 69th floor. Now he is only second to Luofan's Starry Skies Zhu Guang. At this rate, maybe he can climb to the first place. Who the hell is this guy? It's like it appeared out of thin air. Fortunately, Ning Cheng had entered the mysterious yellow bead. Otherwise, in this kind of place, even if Ning Cheng's body forging technique was powerful, he would have already been burnt to ashes by this maximal fire. Ning Cheng stood up. He had stayed on the 69th floor for a full 6 days. The growth of the underworld crow ghost Rot Tan had slowed down, showing that the effect of the wood attribute spiritual source on the underworld crow ghost Rot Tan was limited. If he wanted his underworld crow ghost Rot Tan to regain its king's demeanor, he would have to find a richer wood spiritual source. By the time Zish Jun rushed to the Culmination Plaza anxiously, the Culmination Plaza was already overcrowded with people. Unfortunately, no matter how anxious he was, there was nothing he could do. He had caused such a mess, but he could not control it. If not for the fact that her eyes were glued to the ranking array's display screen, she would have thought that she was hallucinating. In fact, she knew that she was not mistaken. When Wanderer's flame erupted, the time behind him had stopped beating. After the flame disappeared, the time behind him continued to beat, and Wanderer entered the 71st floor. After pushing open the door to the 70th floor of the Celestial Scryer Tower, the sky filled with flames rushed towards Ningcheng. It felt as if Ningcheng had fallen into a pit of fire. The underworld crow ghost Rattan could not only help against enemies, but it could also stabilize the collapsed void and condense the essence of wood. The wood attribute spiritual source on this floor of the Celestial Scryer Tower was extremely rich. Ningcheng sat down and waited for the underworld crow ghost Rattan to absorb the wood attribute spiritual source. Ningcheng raised his hand and grabbed the spiritual aura. He then engraved a spiritual consciousness mark on it, and sent it into his sea of consciousness. The next moment, everything about the underworld crow ghost Rattan was exposed to Ningcheng's thoughts. Ningcheng could even turn the underworld crow ghost Rattan into ashes with just a thought. What a stroke of luck, Ningcheng thought as he looked at the underworld crow ghost Rattan crazily absorbing the wood attribute spiritual source. He knew that as long as he could help this underworld crow ghost Rattan find enough wood attribute spiritual source, he would have another means in the future. While the others looked at the flames erupting from the Celestial Scryer Tower, she still kept looking at the names on the ranking array formation display. The reason why she felt shocked was that the time behind Wanderer on the ranking list had stopped beating. In other words, when the Celestial Scryer Tower's flames erupted, Wanderer had already fallen. Junior apprentice Sister Qiong? What's wrong? The one who spoke was the female cultivator next to the girl. She felt a little puzzled as to why this junior apprentice sister, who had always been quiet, suddenly became so shocked today. Sure enough, after Ningcheng spoke those words, the underworld crow ghost Rattan jumped even more fiercely. At the same time, a faintly discernible spiritual aura floated up. As the underworld crow ghost Rattan King absorbed the dense wood-attributed aura, Ningcheng's surroundings instantly emptied out. He could no longer feel the wood-attributed viscous aura in the surrounding space. It felt as if he was in an empty house. Moreover, this house was filled with wood-attributed vitality and freshness, filling him with a comfortable feeling. The underworld crow ghost Rattan in his hand continued to crazily absorb the wood-attributed aura from the tower. At the same time, the underworld crow ghost Rattan also grew at a crazy pace. The main Rattan grew to the thickness of a water bottle and several feet long, while two thin vines grew around the main Rattan. From the information provided by the underworld crow ghost Rattan, Ningcheng understood that as long as there was enough wood-attributed spiritual source, the underworld crow ghost Rattan could grow more thin vines. The public square's discussion about Wanderer dying on the 70th floor did not last long before it turned into shock. That's because the word 71st floor appeared behind Wanderer's name. Ah! A girl with a veil covering her face suddenly covered her mouth and screamed out in disbelief. Ningcheng did not retreat. He could bring out the everlasting blue Thunder City to block these flames, or he could use the treasured Thunder Spear to create a profound ice spear net. The moment Ningcheng brought out the maximal flame spiritual technique, the surrounding flames seemed to have gone crazy, forming a terrifying vortex. This vortex swept up the terrifying flames of the entire tower, and swept towards Ningcheng's position. At this moment, the entire space seemed to have been burned into nothingness by this flame, while the celestial river flame shield disappeared without a trace like an eggshell. At the same time, it also showed that his celestial river flame had not yet reached its peak. For ordinary cultivators, in the face of such a powerful flame, the only way out was to retreat to the door and teleport out. Otherwise, in the face of this flame, one could only turn to ashes. Although few cultivators died in the Celestial Scryer Tower, it did not mean that no cultivators died. Fortunately, the celestial river flame was his own. Even if the flames outside burned it to the point of sizzling and thinning it out, Ningcheng could still stimulate his flames to supplement it. No matter who it is, our sect master will definitely invite him over. It's over. Zhishjun felt anxious looking at the rankings. Others might not know who Wanderer was, but he knew. Ning Cheng and he came from the striking order Starry Skies, and he had personally witnessed Ning Cheng's power. Even Lu Pingchuan, who was a powerful existence, could only use 2 spears in Ning Cheng's hands. This kind of terrifying flame can even be seen from the outside. It would be strange if someone could survive inside the celestial scryer tower. Back then he had been locked up by the underworld Crow Ghost Rot Tan King for decades. It was impossible to say that he did not hate it. Now that the underworld Crow Ghost Rot Tan King had recovered its life thanks to the wood spiritual source in the celestial scryer tower, it even recognized him as its master. Now that it had become a Rot Tan under his control, how could he not be in a good mood? He really rushed into the 71st floor. What a terrifying powerhouse. The moment he brought out the celestial river flame, Ning Cheng felt the underworld Crow Ghost Rot Tan King in his hand tremble, and a flattering message appeared in his mind. Inside the celestial scryer tower, only when a cultivator died or was sent out would the time behind the cultivators on the ranking list stop. However, the fact was that no cultivator had been sent out, which meant that Wanderer had definitely died. However, she found that after the time stopped for a few breaths, it started to beat again. After subduing the underworld Crow Ghost Rot Tan King, Ning Cheng realized that this floor of the celestial scryer tower had a completely wood-attributed aura. The reason why the underworld Crow Ghost Rot Tan King could regenerate was because of the wood-attributed aura in this place. However, Ning Cheng did not use any of these methods. Instead, he brought out the celestial river flame. The purple celestial river flame formed an oval-shaped flame shield around his body. The celestial scryer tower's flames instantly clashed with the celestial river flame, causing the celestial river flame to give off a sizzling sound. Even within his flame shield, Ning Cheng could feel the intense heat. His robes once again disappeared, and bursts of burnt smell started to spread out from his body. Ning Cheng quickly made a choice. The celestial river flame could not advance in the face of such horrifying flames. However, he could try out the maximal flame spiritual technique. The maximal flame spiritual technique not only used the celestial river flame, but it could also absorb the surrounding fire-attributed energy to create a false spatial collapse. What would happen if he used the maximal flame spiritual technique in this situation? Boom boom boom. When the horrifying flame vortex swept towards him, Ning Cheng did not even think about it before entering the mysterious yellow bead. On the 9x9 celestial scryer tower's ranking display, the words Jiangzhou's Wanderer looked extremely glaring. Jiangzhou's Wanderer now ranked 3rd, pushing down the genius female cultivator Ao Hushan from the 69th floor, only second to Xiaoyu, who had previously reached the 71st floor, and Zhu Guang, who had reached the 70th floor. Chapter 578. As soon as Ning Cheng pushed open the door to the 71st floor, he immediately felt that something was wrong. He knew that the celestial scryer tower's first ranker was Xiaoyu, and that Xiaoyu was only on the 71st floor. Now that he had unknowingly ascended to the 71st floor, wouldn't he be the center of attention? If he didn't have any secrets, it wouldn't matter if he was the center of attention. He could even find a good backer. But now he was full of secrets. If he was discovered by an expert, it would be strange if he wasn't investigated thoroughly. Now, even if he wanted to retreat, he didn't have the chance. Moreover, he didn't want to retreat. Moreover, after entering the celestial scryer tower, he not only improved his spear techniques and spirit techniques, but also improved his celestial river domain. Moreover, Ning Cheng had also comprehended the spiritual consciousness defense and spiritual consciousness attack techniques. Even the underworld Crow Ghost Rot Tan had recognized him as its master and helped him greatly. He had only reached the 71st floor. If he reached the 81st floor, how much would his harvest be? Thinking of this, Ning Cheng once again took a step forward. The boundless water chi aura instantly rushed towards Ning Cheng, just like the wood-attributed aura on the 69th floor. This shadowless and invisible water chi aura made people feel suffocated. Not to mention breathing. Even celestial essence would be suppressed by this water. However, this was just an invisible water aura. Along with this water aura, Ning Cheng's spiritual consciousness couldn't penetrate this seemingly endless wall of water, even with his starry sky sea of consciousness. Water gives people the impression that it is soft, but water is a real hard thing. You can press a piece of iron into a thin sheet, but you can't press a mass of water into something smaller. At this moment, the water wall on the 71st floor was being compressed, as if it was about to squeeze the water on this floor into a small ball. If Ning Cheng did not rush out of this mass of water as soon as possible, then he would definitely be crushed into nothingness. Ning Cheng's celestial river domain stretched out, and the water walls squeezing him loosened a bit. Although the effects of the celestial river domain were greatly reduced under the suppression of this water wall, it still helped Ning Cheng a lot. The moment the water wall's suppression loosened a little, Ning Cheng's treasured thunder spear shot out. The traceless sacred art was shadowless and traceless, but it was able to create a small crack in the suppressive water mass. As long as it was just a small gap, it would be enough for Ning Cheng. In an instant, he rushed past the 71st floor and arrived at the entrance of the 72nd floor. Ning Cheng was not in a hurry to push open the door to the 72nd floor of the tower. He stood in front of the door with some doubts. Logically speaking, the 71st floor was only slightly harder than the 70th floor. Since Xiao Yu could pass through the 70th floor, why couldn't he pass through the 71st floor? Ning Cheng thought for a long time, but could not figure out the answer to this question. As such, he simply pushed open the door to the 72nd floor. The 72nd floor was filled with attacks from various magic treasures and saber lights. These attacks were mixed with the pushing force and were several times stronger than the previous attacks. Ning Cheng was the least afraid of this kind of attack. After arriving at this place, Ning Cheng finally understood the significance of these few layers. From wood to fire, then to water, and then to this kind of metal blade attack. The next level would probably be earth attribute attacks. Metal, wood, water, fire, and earth. Any other cultivator would have a hard time passing all of them. He had a complete set of primary spiritual roots. Although he had not tested the attributes of his spiritual roots, Ning Cheng guessed that he had metal, wood, water, fire, and earth spiritual roots. 72 ND floor. Jiangzhou's wanderer surpassed spiritual heaven sex Xiao Yu and rushed to the top of the celestial scryer tower. I don't know how many years the celestial scryer tower has stood for, but this time someone actually rushed to the 72nd floor. Not to say that there would be no one in the future, but I'm afraid that this is unprecedented, right? It's unprecedented, isn't it? I heard that there was a senior named Guaya who rushed to the 76th floor. Then why is his name not on the ranking list? Are you stupid? Unless one can rush to the 81st floor, one's name will be recorded in the ranking list forever. If one cannot reach the 81st floor, once this cultivator enters the celestial river realm, his name will immediately drop from the celestial scryer tower's ranking list. The discussions in the culmination public square were mixed with arguments. No matter how they argued, everyone felt nothing but worship for Jiangzhou's wanderer, who was ranked first. Look, wanderer rushed to the 73rd floor. He passed it again, the 74th floor. At this time, even Zhishjun, who was worried about Ning Cheng, completely forgot to worry about Ning Cheng. Just like the other cultivators, he stared at the 74th floor behind Jiangzhou's wanderer's name with his mouth wide open in shock. Every floor within the celestial scryer tower was extremely difficult, not to mention rushing to the 74th floor. The 73rd floor contained various earth-attributed attacks. The 74th floor contained icebergs and snowy seas, the 75th floor contained hurricanes, and the 76th floor contained crazy thunder attacks. Ning Cheng stopped at the 76th floor. His thunder tribulation only lasted for a short period of time, and he was a cultivator who could absorb thunder-attributed spiritual sources to absorb. This floor contained all kinds of thunder attacks. For him, not only could he absorb the thunder source for cultivation, but he could also comprehend the thunder source attacks. Unfortunately, he was not very familiar with the attributes of ice and wind. Otherwise, he would have stayed on the 74th floor's icebergs and snowy seas and the 75th floor's hurricanes for some time. Lightning arcs fell on Ning Cheng's body, while thunderballs smashed into Ning Cheng's domain one after another. Under the violent lightning arcs attacks, Ning Cheng absorbed the thunder spiritual source for cultivation, while trying to find the pattern of the thunder source's attacks. thousands of miles away from the eternal heaven starry sky city. There was a starry sky city surrounded by a powerful defensive array formation. To be precise, it was not a starry sky city, but a starry sky corner city. Outside this starry sky corner city, there were a few huge floating characters. Clan's corner. Starry sky corner cities were very common in any grand starland. Generally, big families, sects, and some other forces would establish their own corner cities. These corner cities were much simpler than starry sky cities, and were a gathering place for a single force. Clan's corner city was the lair of culmination Clan. Although Clan was not a big family in grand culmination starry sky, it was also not a small family. At this time, in the most luxurious mansion in Clan's corner city, a middle-aged male cultivator in the heaven-seated realm and a female cultivator in the heaven's mandate realm accompanied a young and handsome man in the living room. However, this young man, accompanied by two powerhouses, only had a celestial gatherer cultivation. No one knew what they had said, but the young and handsome man frowned slightly. "Young master, you please have some tea. Cece will be back soon." Ching has been with Cece for a long time. Now that Cece is back, Ching will definitely come back soon. The middle-aged man picked up the teacup and spoke. Although he was a heaven-seated cultivator, facing a celestial gatherer realm cultivator, he still had to smile. The handsome man showed a slight smile. "When I first met Ching said that the Tao companion she wanted to find in the Celestial Scryer Tower must rank first in the Celestial Scryer realm. And in the Celestial River realm, he must rank first in the Celestial River Tower." What Ching said was right. If one did not rank first in the Celestial Scryer realm, how could he be worthy of Ching? It's just that Ching had already gone to striking order Starry Sky, and I Xiaoyu had no choice but to take the first place in the Celestial Scryer Tower to wait for her. A few days ago, I met with Heavenly Emperor Striking Order, and learned that the Striking Order Starland's ships had already arrived at Grand Culmination Starry Sky. I should have come here a long time ago, but because of some trivial matters in the sect, I was delayed for a few days. I just came here to see Ching and tell Ching that I did not let her down. The middle-aged man showed an awkward smile, and was just about to speak when two people hurried into the living room. A man and a woman came in. The man had silver hair and overflowed with a powerful aura. Apparently, he was a heaven-seated powerhouse. Beside the silver-haired man was an extremely young girl. The girl's eyes were filled with anxiety and exhaustion. "Elder brother Su Cece, you're back? Where's Ching?" Seeing the two people come in, the middle-aged man immediately stood up and asked. The handsome man called Xiaoyu also stood up and stared at the two people who came in. Apparently, he also cared about where Ching went. "After Sister Ching sent me back, she immediately returned to Striking Order Starland. I tried to persuade her, but she wouldn't budge." The girl called Cece spoke with a hint of tears. "What?" The middle-aged man spoke in disbelief. "Didn't the Time Wilderness open? Why would she go to a small place like Striking Order Starry Sky?" Cece glanced at Xiaoyu but did not answer. Only she knew what Sister Ching wanted to do in Striking Order Starland. She wanted to wait for the second opening of the Time Wilderness in Striking Order Starland, before going in to find that cultivator called Wanderer. The only reason why Sister Ching wanted to return to Grand Culmination Starry Sky was to deliver the Time Stones. "Why? Didn't Ching say that she would accompany me to Culmination Public Square when she came back?" "That's because I said that the next time she came back, my name would appear at the top of the Celestial Scryer Tower's ranking list. Why would she go to Striking Order Starry Sky now?" Xiaoyu's tone turned a little unhappy. His pursuit of Yu Qing was something that the entire Eternal Heaven Starry Sky City knew about. Everyone thought that he and Yu Qing were a match made in heaven. Yu Qing had the most beautiful appearance in the entire Starry Sky. He was the most talented cultivator in the entire Starry Sky. Only such a combination would make a perfect match. Why would Yu Qing leave Eternal Heaven Starry Sky City at such a critical juncture and return to a small place like Striking Order Starry Sky? Thinking of this, Xiaoyu's expression turned a little ugly. Yu Qing was indeed the most beautiful, but as a genius from the Starry Sky sect's spiritual heaven sect, wasn't this too much? "Senior apprentice brother Yu, I heard. The girl called Cece saw Xiao Yu's expression and whispered with some worry. However, she did not dare to speak a single word for a long time. Xiao Yu took in a deep breath and nodded to Cece before speaking with a slow voice. Junior apprentice Sister Cece, what did you hear? Just tell me. No matter what, I will make a trip to Striking Order Starry Sky. Cece gave out an sound. Senior apprentice Brother Yu. I heard that someone from the Celestial Scryer Tower has reached the 69th floor. I also heard that this person has a chance to rush to the 72nd floor. Xiao Yu's expression immediately changed. He knew that the Celestial Scryer Tower had produced a heaven-defying cultivator. When he came here, he had heard that this fellow had already reached the 61st floor. However, he did not take it to heart. If this fellow wanted to surpass his 71st floor, then he could forget about it. Now that Cece said that this person had reached the 69th floor, it meant that this person clearly had the ability to challenge the top. Thinking of this, Xiao Yu could no longer stay. He gave a casual greeting and quickly rushed out. Chapter 579. When Xiao Yu arrived at the Culmination Public Square, Ningcheng had just set foot on the 77th floor of the Celestial Scryer Tower. Ningcheng stayed on the 76th floor for a few days, but apart from some simple lightning arcs, he did not manage to comprehend any real thunder-attributed spirit techniques. This caused Ningcheng to stop staying on the 76th floor. The mysterious yellow formless was indeed powerful, but even if it was powerful, it still had to have a source. Only with a form could one be formless. Right now, he couldn't even touch the form of a lightning attack, so how could he be formless? Xiao Yu stared blankly at the 77th floor behind Jiang District's Wanderer. His heart was burning like a ball of fire. He was sure that he wouldn't be able to reach the 77th floor. That's right, the 71st floor wasn't his limit. The reason why he didn't go up to the 72nd floor was because he wanted to stay behind and slap others in the face. This time, Grand Culmination Starry Skies had gathered countless celestial scryer geniuses. Maybe some of them would be able to rush to the 72nd floor. At this time, he would not hesitate to enter the Celestial Scryer Tower again and step on the cultivator, who rushed to the 72nd floor. He wanted to let everyone know that he still had strength to spare. He wanted to give the impression that even if someone rushed to the 80th level, he would be able to reach the 81st level. However, even Xiao Yu couldn't guarantee that he could break through the 74th floor. He could at most open the 74th floor, but he wouldn't be able to pass through it. However, someone had managed to reach the 77th level today. It was obvious that this wanderer was more powerful than him. Xiao Yu clenched his fists. The premier genius of Grand Culmination Starry Skies was him, Xiao Yu. He, Xiao Yu, even dared to erase his own cultivation, returning from the Celestial Bridge realm to the Celestial Gatherer realm. Who else would dare to do such a thing? Since he could reach the top of the Celestial Scryer Tower, and then erase his cultivation, it looked like a unique existence. Only a unique genius like him would dare to do this. Now his ranking in the Celestial Scryer Tower had fallen to the 2nd place, while his 1st place had disappeared. He erased his own cultivation and forcefully reduced it to the Star Condensation realm, no longer acting in a proud and supremely confident manner. What truly attracted people's attention was always the number 1. As soon as Ningcheng entered the 77th floor of the Celestial Scryer Tower, he found himself surrounded by messy spatial blade lights. The space blade aura was different from ordinary space blade aura. It was invisible and could be created out of thin air. Under this kind of spatial blade light, if one was careless, they would be split into 2 halves. Getting injured was an incomparably simple matter. Ningcheng passed through the void, and even passed through positional planes. Although he was enveloped by the heaven-opening child talisman when he passed through planes, it did not affect his understanding of the void. Under Ningcheng's spiritual consciousness, these spatial blade lights basically had nowhere to hide. Some of the blade lights that even Ningcheng's spiritual consciousness could not catch, could also be sensed by him. Even if he couldn't avoid it completely, he could at least avoid the vital parts. In just half a day, Ningcheng rushed past the 77th floor, and pushed open the door to the 78th floor. After pushing open the door to the 78th floor, Ningqing first faced a spatial collapse. Although this place was inside the celestial scryer tower, Ningqing did not dare to step into this spatial collapse. Once he entered, who knew where he would land? It was only at this moment that Ningqing could deeply feel the power of his starry sky sea of consciousness. Without the starry sky sea of consciousness and the celestial river domain, Ningqing would not have been able to persist for a long time amidst the dense spatial collapses filled with spatial blade lights. His powerful spiritual consciousness attached to the celestial river domain clearly told Ningqing about the dangers and spatial collapses. This was a place where other people could easily lose their lives, but Ningqing easily passed through it. He entered the 79th floor. Heavens, this person isn't going to rush to the 81st floor, is he? When Ningqing rushed to the 79th floor, the cultivators on the public square no longer looked at which floor Ningqing had reached. Instead, they started to wonder if this cultivator could rush to the 81st floor. This person is too powerful. He even rushed to the 79th floor. If the association master saw it. Hey little miss, why are you so downcast? That person is about to rush to the 81st floor. The green-robed woman standing next to the celestial scryer tower's ranking screen felt happy when she found that her little miss did not look happy. The female cultivator in the light blue robe lowered her head and spoke in a low voice. If he had only rushed to the top 100, I would have had some hope. If he had rushed to the top 10, then my hope would have been much smaller. But now, I have no hope. What is there to be happy about? The green-robed girl quickly spoke up. Little miss, even if he reached the 81st floor, as long as we find him first, we would still have some hope. Looking at this person's name and Jiangzhou star, we know that this person is definitely a rogue cultivator. This kind of rogue cultivator has never seen the world, as long as we treat him well. Look around. The female cultivator, addressed as Little Miss, spoke up in an angry tone. The green-robed woman looked back and looked around before muttering to herself. When did so many powerhouses come here? After Ningqing opened the tower's entrance to the 79th floor, he was surprised to find that the inside looked like a chaotic land. There were no walls, no roads, no directions, and no attacks. Ningqing looked back and found that even the tower's entrance had disappeared. What kind of floor was this? Ningqing took a few steps forward, but it felt like he was walking on cotton. He reached out and touched the bottom, but could not feel anything. Even when he stretched out his spiritual consciousness, he still could not see anything. What's going on? Ningqing felt somewhat baffled. Didn't entering the celestial scryer tower mean comprehending one's own Tao laws and spirit techniques, and then rushing through the celestial scryer tower at the same time? Why was there nothing here? Wait, Ningqing's mind suddenly caught the words rushing through the celestial scryer tower. No matter what floor this was, no matter what this floor contained, wouldn't he just have to pass through this floor? Thinking of this, Ningqing's spirit shook, and a few spiritual consciousness blade lights shot out. Since his spiritual consciousness could not penetrate, then he would use his spiritual consciousness to attack. If his spiritual consciousness attack did not work, then he would try using his spirit techniques. The moment the spiritual consciousness blade lights shot out, Ningqing's spiritual consciousness sensed a vague void interface. Was this a simulation of the void interface? After Ningqing understood this, he felt even more surprised. Just like elder brother Songwei had said, the interface was a wall. As long as he tore through this wall, he could use the shortest time to pass through this interface. If he could not tear through this wall, then he would have to take a detour if he wanted to pass through. Tearing through interfaces was something that only powerhouses could do. Ningqing was not a powerhouse, and this place only simulated a low-level void interface. However, one day in the future, he would be able to tear through the interface in the real void and return to the graceful star mainland in just a few breaths. Ningqing no longer delayed. Circulating his celestial essence, he raised his hand and tore through the interface barrier in front of him. A new space appeared in front of Ningqing. Ningqing took a step inside, and his spiritual consciousness once again caught sight of the isolation of the interface. Ningqing knew that the interface he tore and the interface he touched were all virtual. However, he still felt excited in his heart. Ningqing tore through one interface after another, and Ningqing opened one space after another until Ningqing stood outside the 80th floor of the celestial scryer tower. Pushing open the 80th floor, Ningqing saw nothing on this floor. If this floor was the same as the 79th floor, then there would always be some void interfaces blocking the way. However, on this floor, his spiritual consciousness could move unimpeded without any obstruction from the void interfaces. There were no obstacles, no attacks. Similarly, there were no steps leading to the 81st floor. Ningqing could easily walk freely on the 80th floor. Apart from the praying mat in the middle of this floor, there was only one entrance to the tower. Ningqing knew that if he wanted to get teleported out, as long as he touched the tower's entrance, it would mean that he failed to break through the floor. In any case, Ningqing did not want to get teleported out. Although he did not know the situation in the Culmination Public Square, he knew that the Culmination Public Square would have a lot of people at this time. After all, someone had broken into the 80th floor of the Celestial Scryer Tower. Ningqing walked to the praying mat in the middle of the 80th floor and sat down. He did not believe that this floor was just a decoration. Every floor of the Celestial Scryer Tower had its own function. It was impossible for the 80th floor to become meaningless. The moment Ningqing sat down on the praying mat, one scene after another appeared in front of him. These scenes showed him facing a variety of attacks from the moment he entered the first floor of the Celestial Scryer Tower. Even attacks of various attributes came one after another. Among these attacks, Ningqing managed to collect the underworld crow ghost Rot Tan, comprehended some thunder-attributed lightning arcs, and even came into contact with the means to tear through interfaces. The various scenes condensed into a variety of Tao laws, which Ningqing repeatedly deduced. Although there were many means to attack him, the myriad variations were still one of them. Whether it was the condensation of metal, wood, water or fire or wind, thunder, earth, or ice, they were all methods. These methods were all condensed from the Celestial Scryer Tower. For him, these methods would be condensed from his celestial essence, spiritual consciousness, and Tao laws. One day in the future, when he reached a certain realm, he would be able to turn the wind and snow in the sky into thunder with just a raise of his hand. He could even turn a mound of earth into a sea of fire, which was the meaning of returning to one. All spirit techniques were invisible and formless, but they all came from the same source, which was also the meaning of returning to one. Just like the prosperity of all things between heaven and earth, although there seemed to be many of them, they were all a single entity. The starry sky of the universe might seem vast, but it was just a vast world. Controlling everything, turning the wind and clouds into rain with just a raise of one's hand. This was the meaning of returning to one. Something shrouded in fog suddenly loosened in Ningqing's mind. Ningqing suddenly opened his eyes. Was this the origin of his Tao laws? He cultivated the mysterious yellow formless, and comprehended the returning to one Tao laws. His chief master Bai Qi had once said that all things return to one, and everyone had their own returning to one. Today, on the 80th floor of the Celestial Scryer Tower, he finally touched the edge of his own Tao laws, which was his returning to one. If someone else sat on this praying mat, that person would have comprehended a completely different Tao law compared to returning to one. At this moment, Ningqing felt even more excited. He did not stand up but raised his hand and took out a few materials. Bringing out the celestial river flame, the materials quickly melted, and then quickly removed the impurities before condensing into one array formation after another. 2 hours later, a long spear appeared in Ningqing's hand. Middle-grade Tao artifact. After touching the edge of his own Tao laws, he finally managed to craft his first middle-grade Tao artifact. Ningqing laughed and stood up while holding the long spear in his hand. However, Ningqing immediately restrained his smile and looked up. He did not know when an exit had appeared above him, but the exit led to a void. Wasn't the Celestial Scryer Tower supposed to have 81 floors? How did he reach the top after reaching the 80th floor? Chapter 580. Ningqing's spiritual consciousness swept out, and found that there really was no 81st floor above. Moreover, he did not know where he would end up after entering the void. Ningqing still wanted to enter the immortal Jade Star, and naturally did not want to enter the void. However, Ningqing quickly understood that he had to go up. He spent the entire day on the 80th floor, but apart from going up, there was no exit to this 80th floor. Ningqing did not want to be transferred to the public square. Therefore, he could only rush up. When Ningqing's feet touched the ground, he found that the void that he had swept out with his spiritual consciousness had disappeared. The entrance behind him had also disappeared, indicating that he was still on the same floor. Ningqing froze. Did his spiritual consciousness have a problem? What he had swept out with his spiritual consciousness just now was clearly the void, so why was he still on the same floor after coming up? From the 80th floor, it meant that this was the 81st floor. His spiritual consciousness had not swept out to the 81st floor, but when he came up, he actually reached the 81st floor. What was going on? This floor also did not have any attacks, nor did it have any abnormalities. A dozen steps in front of Ningqing, there was only a single tower door. Above the tower door was written, Celestial Scryer Tower's 81st floor entrance. Ningqing looked around in doubt, but found that there was no way out except for the door marked with the 81st floor's entrance. Ningqing quickly took a few steps forward. He wanted to open the tower door leading to the 81st floor's entrance and enter the real 81st floor. However, something even weirder happened. No matter how many steps he took, no matter how fast he moved, the distance between him and the entrance to the 81st floor still did not change. It was only a dozen steps away, but Ningqing had already taken thousands of steps forward. Looking forward again, the distance was still a dozen steps away. Ningqing's heart sank. He stimulated his celestial essence and flew up. When he landed, the entrance to the 81st floor was still in front of him. If it continued like this, he would never reach the entrance to the 81st floor. Ningqing stopped and did not continue with this kind of useless effort. At this moment, he felt like a monkey, as if he had fallen into someone else's palm and could no longer jump out. This feeling was not good, and it made Ningqing feel very uncomfortable. Ningqing stood in the same place for a full hour. He looked at the entrance to the 81st floor not far ahead and remained silent. He had tried walking slowly, walking quickly, flying and teleportation, but he couldn't move even half a step forward. He suddenly understood why his divine sense had detected that this place was a void. The void was endless, or perhaps he was in it without knowing it. The space of the tower floor was very small, and the void space was very big. Who could define the difference between big and small? Although he held the mysterious yellow bead in his hand, although it was only a little, it contained thousands of worlds. It seemed that he was only a dozen steps away from the 81st floor's door. Who knew if there were countless voids in between? He had yet to comprehend the law of space, which meant that before he comprehended the law of space, he would never be able to push open the door to the 81st floor. In this lifetime, as long as he could not comprehend the law of space, he would have to stay here. Ningqing took in a deep breath. He absolutely could not stay here. He did not comprehend the spatial laws, but he comprehended some superficial knowledge of the temporal laws. He had previously comprehended the Tao of return to one. All things return to one. The wind and clouds could condense into a thunderstorm, and the iceberg could transform into a sea of fire. This place seemed to be only a dozen steps away, but he could not cross it with the laws of space. Why not try the superficial knowledge of the laws of time? Ningqing was a person who acted on his thoughts. He had just thought of the laws of time when he immediately brought out the sunset's twilight spirit technique. The moment he brought out the sunset's twilight spirit technique, everything around him seemed to come to a standstill, as if everything had turned into a sculpture. At this moment, there was only one master in this space, and that was Ningqing. Ningqing raised his foot and took a step forward. The sunset spirit technique disappeared, and the flow of the surroundings returned to normal. Ningqing looked at the 81st floor's door, which he could push open with just a stretch of his hand. He had tried countless methods before, but none of them could help him take a step forward. But after bringing out the sunset's twilight, he reached the entrance to the 81st floor in just a single step. This was the law of heaven and earth, and he had only touched the surface of the laws of time. In the future, if he wanted to achieve a great spirit technique and cross over to the great world, he would have to control all the laws of heaven and earth. Ningcheng did not rush to push open the entrance to the 81st floor. He stood here and found that his spiritual consciousness could now sweep across the entire Culmination Public Square. At this time, there were more cultivators in the Culmination Public Square than he had expected. It was so dense that it almost filled the entire public square. The Culmination Public Square, as one of the top 10 public squares in the Eternal Heaven Starry Sky City, naturally had a massive size. Yet such a huge public square was filled with people, which showed just how many people had gathered here at this time. Ningcheng felt shocked in his heart, but at the same time, he also felt fortunate that he had not been sent out. With so many people here, of course, many of them were here to watch the show, but there must also be a lot of people interested in him. Perhaps he would be the first person to push open the entrance to the 81st floor of the Celestial Scryer Tower. Ningcheng stood there for a long time before calming himself down and pushing open the entrance to the 81st floor. What appeared in front of Ningcheng was not the real 81st floor but a flight of stairs. The stairs extended from his feet all the way to the exit on the bottom floor, which was bordered by the mist of the Celestial Scryer Tower. The entrance to the 81st floor turned out to be a flight of stairs leading to the bottom floor. Ningcheng stood at the top of the stairs, feeling shocked in his heart. Apart from him, no one knew that the 81st floor was just a flight of stairs leading to the bottom floor. Because there were too many people on the public square, some of the cultivators had already reached the edge of the mist. Ningcheng could see with his spiritual consciousness that some of the people would only need to take a few steps back to get close to the stairs. He felt sure that if he went down like this and slowly blended into the crowd of cultivators standing on the public square, no one would know about it. At this time, everyone's attention was focused on the Celestial Scryer Tower and the ranking display screen, so who would care about one more person suddenly appearing in the crowd? Ningcheng's spiritual consciousness continued to sweep out, and he soon found the person he was looking for. The female cultivator, who looked like Shi Qianghua, was also on the public square and stood in the crowd, seemingly talking to the female cultivator next to her. Ningcheng, who originally planned to go down like this, immediately removed his mask-type weapon and rushed down from the 81st floor. With a ready-made flight of stairs, Ningcheng quickly came out from the bottom floor of the Celestial Scryer Tower and blended into the crowd at the edge of the mist. Just as Ningcheng had guessed, no one knew that Ningcheng had come down or even entered the public square. No, that Jiangzhou's wanderer seems to have stopped on the 80th floor. What's so strange about that? He had stayed on the first floor for 8 or 9 days before. How much time does he have this time? Maybe after a while, he would have reached the 81st floor. I'm afraid not. You can see that the time behind him has disappeared. Hey, it really is like that. He entered the 81st floor. He really entered the 81st floor. The cultivator had only spoken halfway when he exclaimed. At this time, no one cared about his exclamation. Everyone was staring at the Celestial Scryer Tower's ranking display screen. Behind the name Jiangzhou's Wanderer, there was indeed the 81st floor. Yes, he did enter the 81st floor, but there is still no time behind him. After Ningcheng entered the 81st floor, the entire public square boiled up. No matter who it was, everyone felt amazed that someone had finally set foot on the top floor of the Celestial Scryer Tower. This was a milestone for the Grand Culmination Starry Skies, and nothing could be more sensational than this. Even the heavenly emperors of the Grand Culmination Starry Skies had never entered the 81st floor during their time in the Celestial Scryer Tower. But why is there no time behind him? It stands to reason that as long as he does not come out and remains in the Celestial Scryer Tower, the time would keep ticking. Did he fall? Since he could reach the 81st floor, how could he fall? While countless people cheered, some people also felt surprised. Behind Jiangzhou's Wanderer was the 81st floor, but there was no time ticking after that. To be precise, there was not even a time display behind it. His name has gone up a bit. With an exclamation, everyone noticed that the first name Jiangzhou's Wanderer and the second name Spiritual Heaven Sex Xiaoyu on the ranking display screen had pulled apart. At the same time, the name Jiangzhou's Wanderer had changed from pale gold to purple gold, and the font had also grown several times larger. Looking from afar, the words Jiangzhou's Wanderer looked extremely dazzling. Ningcheng, who stood behind the crowd, felt equally shocked. Because he stood at the entrance of the 81st floor, his spiritual consciousness could sweep through the entire public square. Of course, he knew what was going on. When he pushed open the door to the 81st floor and walked down the stairs, the name on the ranking display screen still showed the 80th floor. When he came out of the stairs, out of the mist, and blended into the crowd on the public square, the name on the ranking display screen changed to the 81st floor. Not only that, but the time behind the name had also disappeared. Didn't this mean that the entrance to the 81st floor was on the top of the Celestial Scryer Tower? Only by opening the tower's entrance and exiting the Celestial Scryer Tower could one truly set foot on the 81st floor. If that was the case, no one on the public square would know that everyone was standing on the 81st floor except for him. Compared to others, he only had the process of climbing to the 81st floor. Process. Ningcheng once again looked at the excited crowd around him, and suddenly felt a kind of enlightenment in his heart. In fact, many people stood in the same position and lived the same life. However, some people cherished it, while some people complained about it. The reason why he cherished it was because he had worked hard to create this position. His wealth did not come from the position, but from the process, just like how he had painstakingly climbed from the first floor to the 81st floor. However, Ningcheng quickly put aside these distracting thoughts and hurriedly squeezed through the crowd towards Shi Qianghua. Chapter 581. The most magnificent place in the eternal heaven starry sky city was naturally the leveled Heart Emperor Mountain. It was a fairyland within the city, with a continuous stretch of pavilions wrapped in rich starry sky essence chi, standing amidst the verdant mountains. The mountains were surrounded by flying cranes and colorful clouds, making it hard for people to imagine that this place was in the middle of a city. This fairyland within the city was the immortal cave of Grand Culmination Starry Sky's premier Starry Sky Emperor, Chuan Xinluo. It was also the most famous of the many Star Emperor mountains. There were many legends about Chuan Xinluo in the Grand Starry Sky. It was said that Chuan Xinluo's cultivation had surpassed the eternal Starry Sky Emperor realm, but no one knew what realm he had reached. As long as a Starry Sky Emperor from Grand Culmination Starry Sky came to the eternal heaven Starry Sky City, no one would dare to not visit Chuan Xinluo. At this time, a dozen people sat in the air pavilion of the leveled Heart Emperor Mountain. These were the Starry Sky Heavenly Emperors who came to visit Chuan Xinluo. Chuan Xinluo was a very proud person. However, no matter how high his status was, in the face of these Starry Sky Heavenly Emperors who came to visit, he had to take the initiative to accompany them. Has that wanderer not come out yet? Chuan Xinluo smiled, and asked the maidservant beside him. Usually, when celestial emperors came to visit, they would only discuss the situation of the starry sky and exchange their cultivation gains. But this time, because of the appearance of wanderer in the Culmination Public Square, Chuan Xinluo and these starry sky emperors had another topic to discuss. Because of this, Chuan Xinluo said that once wanderer came out, he would bring him to the leveled Heart Emperor Mountain. Replying to Heavenly Emperor, there is no news about him yet. He should still be in the Celestial Scryer Tower. The maidservant quickly replied with a bow. A dark-faced man smiled. This wanderer can reach the 80th floor, which shows that he is indeed a proud talent. Perhaps our Grand Culmination Starry Sky is about to give birth to a truly heaven-defying person. Hearing the dark-faced man's words, a delicate-looking Taoist priestess sitting not far from him spoke up. Reaching the 80th floor of the Celestial Scryer Tower is indeed a proud talent, but it is not a heaven-defying person. As long as one is familiar with starry sky attributes and has formidable strength, reaching the 80th floor is not impossible. Chuan Xinluo laughed. Brother Wu is right, this person is indeed a genius. However, I still agree with junior apprentice sister Seeking Huey's words. In fact, there is no way to enter the 9x9 Celestial Scryer Tower. To be able to reach the 80th level, one could already be considered a genius. Because no one has been able to reach the 81st level. Even if someone managed to reach the 80th level, they would only be considered a genius and not heaven-defying. Then why? Someone immediately asked. Chuan Xinluo smiled and said, Let junior apprentice sister Seeking Hui answer your question. The delicate and pretty Taoist nun said calmly, this is because the strongest attacks on the first 80 floors are only some ordinary elemental attacks or attacks on the sea of consciousness. They don't even involve laws. However, in order to enter the 81st floor from the 80th floor, it was said that one had to understand a space-time law. Whether it is the laws of space or the laws of time, they are definitely not something that a celestial scryer cultivator can control, not even the slightest bit. Speaking until here, the delicate and pretty Taoist priestess swept her gaze over the starry sky emperors around her before continuing. Not to mention a celestial scryer cultivator. Even among us, how many of us have even grasped the surface of the laws of time? At least I haven't touched it yet. The surrounding starry sky emperors sucked in a breath of cold air. The laws of space were still acceptable, but the laws of time? This was simply too heaven-defying. The celestial scryer tower had the laws of time, so when Chuan Xinluo said that no one could enter the 81st floor, he definitely did not say it casually. Chuan Xinluo laughed again. Everyone, don't worry about it. Since Wanderer can enter the 80th floor, he can already be considered as the premier genius of my grand culmination starry skies. After he comes out, someone will bring him here. No matter which starry sky he comes from, I will. Chuan Xinluo's words had not yet finished when the maidservant beside him suddenly looked at the communication pearl. She then took a step forward and spoke with a trembling voice. Heavenly Emperor, that wanderer entered the 81st floor, and the time behind him stopped. What? Chuan Xinluo suddenly stood up, his expression changing drastically. The Taoist priestess called Seeking Hui also stood up in shock. Only those who understood the rules of the celestial scryer tower knew how terrifying it was to rush to the 81st floor. Senior apprentice brother leveled heart. I want to go to the culmination public square. Seeking Hui no longer cared about the impoliteness of her words. A cultivator who could reach the 81st floor of the celestial scryer tower was definitely worth her time. Once such a cultivator matured, he would definitely become a powerhouse of the universe. Making friends with a powerhouse was not something that could be achieved after the powerhouse had grown strong, but before the powerhouse had grown strong. Chuan Xinluo also could not care about Seeking Hui's impoliteness and immediately spoke up. Everyone, let's go and have a look. I also want to go and have a look. Even if one's qualifications were heaven-defying, to be able to set foot on the 81st floor of the 9x9 Celestial Scryer Tower in the Celestial Scryer realm, it definitely contained an unparalleled secret. Whether it was to accept such a heaven-defying person as a disciple or something else, he could not stay here and wait. Why is it you again? Ning Cheng walked up to the two female cultivators, but before he could speak, the female cultivator next to him spoke up with a frown. Ning Cheng quickly said a word of apology to this female cultivator, and then turned to the young girl who looked like Shi Qianghua and spoke. I see that you look like a family member of mine. Her name is Shi Qianghua. Can I ask your name? When the girl heard Ning Cheng's words, her eyes immediately showed surprise. But before she could speak, the female cultivator next to her stopped in front of her and sneered. What a good idea. I think you should know where we come from, right? Ning Cheng nodded. Yes, I heard that you came from 9 Jewels Starry Sky's everlasting sacred shrine. You seem to have inquired very clearly. Do you also know that my name is Jingyi? The female cultivator spoke with disdain. Senior apprentice sister Yi. The girl quickly spoke up from the side. But I don't even know what my surname is. The female cultivator named Jingyi looked at the girl speechlessly. Junior apprentice sister Qiong, he's just looking for an excuse. The last time we met him, you didn't see his perverted appearance. After that, she stared at Ning Cheng and spoke. I don't know which starry sky you came from, but you don't even think about cultivation or progress all day long. Just look at that person who climbed to the 81st floor of the Celestial Scryer Tower. Everyone was envious and determined to keep up with that wanderer's footsteps. You, on the other hand, only know how to inquire about female cultivators' names all day long. Don't you feel ashamed? Ningqing knew that this Jingyi had misunderstood him. He was just about to explain when he heard the girl say that she really was called Qianghua. At this moment, how could he be in the mood to explain to Jingyi? He took a step forward in excitement and spoke with a trembling voice. Qianghua, it's really you. The girl named Qianghua quickly took a step back, but Jingyi once again stood in front of Ningcheng and spoke with a stern voice. What do you want to do? This is the culmination public square. Believe it or not, I will immediately call out. Ningcheng calmed down and looked at the girl before speaking. Excuse me, are you called Shi Qianghua? Even if the girl had not answered, Ningcheng felt sure in his heart that this junior apprentice sister Qiong in front of him was 99% his Shi Qianghua. The girl hesitated for a moment before speaking. My name is Qianghua, but I don't have a surname. Jingyi pulled Qianghua aside and spoke. Junior apprentice sister Qiong, what is there to say to this kind of person? Junior apprentice sister Qianghua, I just want to talk to you in private. Ningcheng spoke with a trembling voice. Jingyi felt a little impatient. She gave a snort and asked, What's your surname? Ningcheng hesitated for a moment, but still did not hide it and replied, My surname is Ning. Jingyi's tone became even more disdainful. Your surname is Ning, but you just said that my junior apprentice sister is your family, and also said that my junior apprentice sister's surname is Shi. A person surnamed Ning and a person surnamed Shi are family. You wouldn't say that my junior apprentice sister is your Dao companion, right? Oh, my junior apprentice sister has never gone out alone. Maybe you would say that my junior apprentice sister was your Dao companion in her past life. Do you still have any face? Don't bully my junior apprentice sister for not knowing anything. Ningcheng opened his mouth. He was just about to say those words. In fact, Shi Qianghua was his wife, but she was really his wife in her past life. What? Can't say it? I've seen a lot of people like you. Next time you better stay away from us. Otherwise don't blame me for being impolite. Jingyi became more and more angry as she spoke. A stern voice interrupted Jingyi's words. Jingyi subconsciously stiffened for a moment, before she quickly bowed and called out, Sacred Master. Qianghua also quickly bowed and called out, Sacred Master. A Taoist priestess wearing a light-colored Taoist robe suddenly appeared in front of Ningcheng. This Taoist priestess looked very delicate and pretty, but Ningcheng could not tell her age. When he heard Qianghua call this Taoist priestess Sacred Master, he quickly cupped his fists and called out, Greetings, Senior. Who are you? The Taoist priestess' gaze swept over Ningcheng. Ningcheng felt as if a bucket of ice water had been poured over his head, causing his entire body to turn cold. This Taoist priestess' gaze seemed to be able to penetrate his clothes, making him involuntarily want to cover his vital parts. Such a powerful cultivation. This was the only thing Ningcheng could feel. Sacred Master, this person always pesters junior apprentice sister Qianghua. I was just about to tell him to stay away from us. Jingyi quickly spoke up. The Taoist priestess' gaze turned even colder, while her powerful aura almost pressed down on Ningcheng. Ningcheng forced himself to stand in place, while his legs trembled. Seeing that Ningcheng did not fall under the pressure of her imposing aura, the Taoist priestess' suppressive aura weakened a bit, but still spoke up in a cold tone. Are you in love with Qianghua? Ningcheng opened his mouth, but did not know how to answer. However, this Taoist priestess' cold and disdainful gaze made him feel very uncomfortable in his heart. Qianghua was his wife, so why couldn't he like her? That's right, I like Qianghua. Ningcheng took in a deep breath and spoke with a firm tone. Fuck off. The Taoist priestess' powerful imposing aura pressed down on him, causing Ningcheng to retreat a dozen steps, knocking into several cultivators in a row, before he finally managed to stand firm. Chapter 582. It's you. A female cultivator whom Ningcheng bumped into looked at Ningcheng in surprise. Ningcheng also recognized this female cultivator. It was the woman who had crashed into his Starry Sky battleship and forced him to pay 100 million green coins. Don't tell me you want me to pay another 100 million green coins? Ningcheng coldly looked at the female cultivator wearing a light blue robe in front of him, and spoke in a tone devoid of any warmth. Facing Qianghua, he couldn't explain his feelings, but no one could understand them. In the end, it was because his strength was too low. Even though his strength had risen rapidly, he was still unable to stand firm in front of this Taoist nun. At this time, Ningqing only had one thought in his mind, and that was to cultivate. He did not continue to look for Qianghua. He did not want to do such a meaningless thing. As long as he knew that Qianghua was in the everlasting sacred shrine, one day, he would slap this Taoist priestess away and then take Qianghua away. Of course not, but isn't it a fact that you bumped into me just now? The blue-robed female cultivator did not get angry and spoke with a gentle tone. Ningqing calmly spoke. It is a fact, but there are so many people in this public square, as such it is inevitable that they would brush shoulders with each other. I'm very sorry for bumping into you. I didn't mean to. I'm not talking about you bumping into me. That's a small matter. We've met twice in a row, so it can be considered fate. Let's get to know each other. My name is Su Dai. What's your name? Contrary to Ningqing's expectations, this female cultivator, who had initially pressured him to lose money, now unexpectedly spoke in a very gentle tone. Regarding this female cultivator who wanted him to bow to the ground and apologize, Ningqing did not have a favorable impression of her. He said indifferently, I'm just a rogue cultivator, a nameless person. Saying that, Ningqing no longer wanted to talk with this Su Dai. As he walked towards Zixjun, Su Dai bit her lips as she stared at Ningqing's back. She certainly understood the meaning behind Ningqing's words. That is, a person like her was not someone that he could climb up to. To put it bluntly, I don't put you in my eyes. She felt curious about Ningqing because Ningqing, a puny celestial scryer cultivator, could casually take out 100 million green coins to compensate her. If it was any other cultivator, they would definitely bow to the ground in apology. Moreover, when he spoke now, he didn't have the apologetic look from before. It could be seen that the reason why this guy gave her the money was not because he was afraid of her, but because he really knew that he was in the wrong. Little miss, this fellow is quite interesting. The green-robed female cultivator, on seeing her little miss staring at Ningqing's back, added a sentence. Junior Marshal Sister Qiong, did you see that? This person is looking for opportunities to get to know female cultivators. He had just bumped into a few people, and that female cultivator knew him. What a coincidence. Jing Yi, on seeing this situation, added oil to the fire as she spoke to Qianghua. That Taoist priestess, addressed as Sacred Master, used her imposing aura to push Ningqing back. Seeing that Ningqing did not come up again, she also did not continue to pay attention to Ningqing. Instead, she asked with a slow tone. You and Qianghua are here. Did the celestial scryer cultivator, who reached the 81st floor, come down? He hasn't come down yet. Just now a person was teleported out. Everyone thought that it was him, but when they rushed up, they realized that it wasn't him. Jingyi quickly replied. Leveled Heart Heavenly Emperor is here. No one knew who called out, but it immediately attracted the attention of many people. Brother Zish. Ningqing called out to Zixjun. Only then did Zixjun react, and excitedly pulled Ningqing towards the periphery. Ningqing patted Zixjun's shoulder and spoke. Brother Zish, I know what you want to say, and I also know what you want to ask. However, these things are secondary. The main thing is that you must help me get a jade card to enter the immortal Jade Star. I want to go into seclusion for cultivation for a while, so I can only ask you for this matter. In addition to that, there is one other thing that I need Brother Zish's help with. Zixjun suppressed the excitement in his heart and spoke. Brother Ning, you can speak freely. As long as I can help, I will definitely do my best to help you. Zixjun no longer addressed Ningqing as Wanderer. Instead, he changed his address to Brother Ning. From this, he understood that he could no longer use the name Wanderer. Ningqing whispered, Brother Zish, you also saw the fierceness of that old Taoist priestess from the everlasting sacred shrine. That female cultivator I like is called Qianghua. Help me keep an eye on her. Once that Qianghua goes out alone, send me a message. If she follows that old Taoist priestess, do not send me a message. I'll take care of it. Zixjun quickly replied. Initially, he wanted to start a relationship with Ningqing because of the rootless green bamboo leaves. Of course, it was also because he appreciated Ningqing. Now that Ningqing could even reach the 81st floor of the Celestial Scryer Tower, he sincerely wanted to become friends with Ningqing. He knew that Ning Cheng had a secret, but which cultivator did not have their own secrets? Even if Ning Cheng's secret was a huge secret, if he exposed it, it would not bring him any benefits. It would only result in one more deadly enemy. Currently, Ning Cheng's cultivation was still low. If he could befriend Ning Cheng, then he might have one more powerful friend in the future. Brother Zish, when will the immortal Jade Star open? Ning Cheng asked with some concern. He worried that he would not have the qualifications to enter the immortal Jade Star once it opened. Zish Jun knew what Ning Cheng was worried about and signaled him with a reassuring look before whispering, "We will have to wait until all the people from the other grand starry skies gather before it opens. Don't worry, even if everyone gathers, we will have to inform everyone before it opens. That's for the best. Brother Zish, I'll take my leave first. Remember to contact me immediately if anything happens." Ning Cheng said a few words to Zish Jun and quietly left the Culmination Public Square. "Senior Apprentice Brother Wanderer, you're back at the right time. Master told me that when he is not around, the artifact crafting store would have to rely on Senior Apprentice Brother Wanderer. I was just worrying about it when Senior Apprentice Brother came back." "That's great." Ning Cheng had just arrived at the entrance of the Baichi artifact crafting store when Junior Apprentice Sister Yen greeted him with a professional smile. Ning Cheng couldn't help but think that this Junior Apprentice Sister Yen truly lived in the wrong place. If she were placed on Earth, she would definitely be a powerful character. Ning Cheng did not answer Junior Apprentice Sister Yan's words, and just sighed with a sad look. "What's wrong? Senior Apprentice Brother Wanderer?" Although Junior Apprentice Sister Yen spoke those words out of concern for Ning Cheng, she still had a professional smile on her face. "Junior Apprentice Sister Yen, you can't call me Senior Apprentice Brother Wanderer from now on. I'm going to change my name." Ning Cheng's expression turned even more bitter. Junior Apprentice Sister Yen smiled. "It's a nice name, why change it?" "Oh, Junior Apprentice Sister Yen, a beautiful woman like you staying in this store all day. It's really boring." At this point, Ning Cheng's words turned mysterious. "You don't know Junior Apprentice Sister Yen. Did someone climb to the 81st floor of the Culmination Public Square's 9x9 Celestial Scryer Tower?" "What?" Junior Apprentice Sister Yan's hands trembled, and the professional smile on her face completely disappeared, replaced with a look of shock. Ning Cheng secretly smiled in his heart. It seems that this Junior Apprentice Sister Yen is not simple. He knew that the 81st floor was extremely difficult to climb. If he had not touched the surface of the laws of time, he would not have been able to reach it. "I already said that you stay at home all day long." And this matter even alarmed Heavenly Emperor Leveled Heart. That person should have already been called away by Heavenly Emperor Leveled Heart. Ning Cheng spoke nonsense. In fact, he had only heard about Heavenly Emperor Leveled Heart from other people's mouths. As for the full name of Heavenly Emperor Leveled Heart, he simply could not figure it out. Seeing Junior Apprentice Sister Yen still in shock, Ning Cheng simply sat down across from her and spoke with a sigh. "You said that such a powerful person of all the names, he chose to name himself Wanderer. You said that the cultivator who climbed to the 81st floor of the Celestial Scryer Tower is also called Wanderer?" Junior Apprentice Sister Yen finally came to her senses and asked in surprise. Ning Cheng nodded. "That's right. Otherwise, why would I change my name? You said that everyone has the same name, so why is there such a big difference?" Alas. Junior Apprentice Sister Yen finally calmed down and once again restored her professional smile. "There are many people with the same name. Senior Apprentice Brother, you don't have to change your name. Wanderer is also a good name." Ning Cheng shook his head. "No, I've been watching from the public square. After that Wanderer rushed to the 81st floor, all the beautiful female cultivators in the public square screamed out in surprise. They all worshipped him. If I don't change my name, I will definitely get beaten up after school." "Senior Apprentice Brother, what do you mean by after school?" "Forget it. You just need to know that if I still call myself Wanderer, many beautiful female cultivators would come to beat me up. In any case, you can just call me Senior Apprentice Brother Ning from now on." Ning Cheng waved his hand and did not say his name. Since junior apprentice sister Yin did not say her name to him, he also did not need to say his name to her. Junior apprentice sister Yin showed a slight smile. Senior apprentice brother Ning worries too much. Such a thing should not happen. Although she said that such a thing would not happen, junior apprentice sister Yin still changed the address to senior apprentice brother Ning. No. Today, I was stopped by a female cultivator on the public square. If Heavenly Emperor Leveled Heart hadn't come, I would have ended up getting beaten up. Ningqing gnashed his teeth and spoke. He had to remember that Daoist priestess from the everlasting sacred shrine. One day, he would use his imposing aura to suppress that Daoist priestess. Is there really such a thing? Junior apprentice sister Yin also saw that Ningqing was not joking. Let's not talk about it. Master Baiqi said that when he is not around, his room is mine. I'm going to rest. If there is anything related to crafting artifacts, you can just collect the materials and bring them up. Master Baiqi has already taught me all his skills. If there is anything related to crafting spirit artifacts, you can refuse it for the time being. I can't craft spirit artifacts for the time being. As Ningqing spoke, he walked to the second floor and took out the array entry jade card that Master Baiqi had left for him. Yes, senior apprentice brother Ning. Junior apprentice sister Yen spoke with a respectful smile. She watched Ningqing walk to the second floor and thought to herself, no wonder Master accepted him as a disciple. This senior apprentice brother and Master seemed to have some similarities, except that their skin was a bit thicker. Arriving at the place where Zhongli Baiqi used to craft artifacts, Ningqing's smiling face immediately sank. Talking nonsense with junior apprentice sister Yin really did make him feel a bit better. However, no matter how much he talked, the helplessness and grievance in the depths of his heart could not dissipate. Strength, he had to have strength. After the matters of the immortal Jade Star came to an end, he would find a place to go into seclusion. Chapter 583. Ningqing felt very satisfied with Zhongli Baiqi's artifact crafting room. Not only did it have rich starry sky essence qi, but it also had many shielding restrictions around the room. Ningqing did not see any monitoring array formations in this place. However, Zhongli Baiqi's cultivation was much higher compared to his own. Even if he did not see the monitoring array formation, he would not use the mysterious yellow bead in this place, nor did he intend to cultivate in this place. In order to enter the immortal Jade Star, Xiaoyu even erased his own cultivation. As such, he naturally did not want to rush to advance to the Celestial Bridge realm. Moreover, he couldn't refine harmonizing celestial pills. Not to mention that harmonizing celestial pills were grade 4 king pills, he couldn't even refine grade 1 celestial pills. As for advancing to the Celestial Bridge realm, without harmonizing celestial pills, it would be extremely difficult. Since he was already at Baiqi Equipment Forging Store, why would he still need to provide the materials to continue forging Dao artifacts? Thinking of this, Ningqing immediately called out, Junior apprentice sister Yan, bring me all the materials for crafting artifacts. I want to prepare for crafting artifacts. These are the things that Master had instructed me to do before he left. Hearing Ningqing's voice, junior apprentice sister Yan quickly came up. She simply did not question whether Ningqing's words were true or false, as she smiled and took out a ring and a jade strip. Senior apprentice brother Ning. Inside this ring are the materials that the guests brought for crafting artifacts. The jade strip contains the request of the guest. I will be going down. If senior apprentice brother Ning has any instructions, you can call me at any time. Ningqing took the ring and the jade strip, before he waved his hand towards junior apprentice sister Yan and spoke. You can go now. As long as someone comes to craft artifacts, you can send the materials to me after a while. Okay, senior apprentice brother Ning. Junior apprentice sister Yan bowed and retreated, which made Ningqing feel very refreshed in his heart. His chief master, Baiqi, was not around, but he could enjoy the treatment of Baiqi's master. Junior apprentice sister Yan had just gone down when Ningqing's spiritual consciousness swept into the ring. When he saw the mountain of materials in the ring, he immediately cried out in shock. There were simply enough materials to refine tens of thousands of middle-grade Dao artifacts. No matter how fast his refining speed was, how long would it take to refine them all? Hearing Ning Cheng's voice coming from upstairs, junior apprentice Sister Yan, who had already arrived at the reception desk, smiled even more brightly. Ning Cheng looked at the long list of Dao artifacts that he needed to craft on the jade strip, and decided to start crafting them. The materials here could at least refine twice the number of Dao tools listed on the jade slip. Not only could he use all kinds of materials to practice for free, but he could also make a windfall. Although these materials could be used to craft middle-grade Dao artifacts, in Ning Cheng's opinion, they were not precious at all. Most of them were grade 4 starry sky materials, while a few were grade 5 starry sky materials. Even in his ring, there were many more precious materials than these. When Ning Cheng brought out the celestial river flame and started crafting artifacts, he completely immersed himself in it. Although his artifact crafting techniques were inspired by Zhongli Baiqi, the truth was that Ning Cheng's artifact crafting techniques and methods were all derived from his own deductions. No master had ever taught him anything. Ever since he crafted his first middle-grade Dao artifact, Ning Cheng had never failed. Ning Cheng crafted one middle-grade Dao artifact after another, and threw them aside. Soon, the middle-grade Dao artifacts around Ning Cheng piled up into a small hill. Artifact crafting also consumed a lot of celestial essence. Only in this place could Ning Cheng truly appreciate the benefits of crafting artifacts. Zhongli Baiqi's artifact crafting store had an abundance of celestial essence, and could quickly replenish the consumption for crafting artifacts. Middle-grade Dao artifacts were also divided into different grades. The difference between a good middle-grade Dao artifact and a poor middle-grade Dao artifact was quite large. Ning Cheng's mysterious yellow formless cultivation method was suitable for correcting and finding the best method. The more middle-grade Dao artifacts he crafted, the more brilliant his artifact crafting techniques became, and the more perfect his artifact crafting techniques became. When Ning Cheng crafted hundreds of middle-grade Dao artifacts, he stopped crafting artifacts. He had come here to learn artifact crafting, not to work for his cheap master for free. Now that he crafted middle-grade Dao artifacts, apart from melting the materials and condensing the artifact shape, he no longer had any doubts about his techniques. Ning Cheng put away the extra materials into his ring, and put the hundreds of finished Dao artifacts into another ring before walking down the stairs. Senior apprentice brother Ning. Seeing Ning Cheng come down, junior apprentice Sister Yan smiled without saying anything. Ning Cheng handed the ring in his hand to junior apprentice Sister Yan. Junior apprentice Sister Yan, I've finished crafting the Dao artifacts you gave me. I've wasted a lot of materials. Junior apprentice Sister Yan grabbed the ring and swept it with her spiritual consciousness. When she saw the hundreds of middle-grade Dao artifacts inside the ring, she looked up at Ning Cheng in disbelief. Senior apprentice brother Ning, did you craft all these? Naturally. Besides me, who else would help me craft artifacts? Ning Cheng smiled. Now you can give me the materials for crafting high-grade Dao artifacts. I'm going to continue crafting artifacts. I came here to help my master, not to play around. Okay, wait. Junior apprentice Sister Yan's eyes flashed with excitement as she took out another ring. Ning Cheng's spiritual consciousness swept inside, and immediately felt disappointed. Although the materials in this ring were better than the ones in the previous ring, the best ones were only a few starry sky grade 6 materials. Moreover, they were also very rare. Junior apprentice Sister Yan, are there no grade 7, grade 8 or grade 9 materials here? Ning Cheng asked with some dissatisfaction. The better the materials, the easier it would be to craft high-grade Dao artifacts. Junior apprentice Sister Yan showed a rare blush on her face. No, master has already used up all the high-grade materials. These are the best I have here. That's not right, Ning Cheng thought as he looked at junior apprentice Sister Yan with some suspicion. This junior apprentice sister usually wore a professional smile on her face. Even if there were no better materials, she wouldn't blush. After all, these materials weren't hers. Senior apprentice brother Ning, do you have a nirvana flame? Junior apprentice Sister Yan seemed to feel that she had lost her composure, and quickly changed the topic. Nirvana flame? No. Ning Cheng shook his head. How can it be considered as a nirvana flame? Junior apprentice Sister Yan looked at Ning Cheng in surprise. It took her a while to understand that Ningqing truly didn't know. She then said, after a flame evolves to purple, it would need to swallow top-grade starry sky fire-attributed materials to undergo nirvana and evolve into a starry sky flame. Otherwise, there is no way to melt top-grade starry sky materials. Senior apprentice brother, if you don't have a nirvana flame, how did you craft middle-grade Dao artifacts? Ningqing suddenly understood. He had spent most of his energy on crafting middle-grade Dao artifacts to melt the materials and condense the artifact shape. Otherwise, his artifact crafting speed would have been much faster, and the quality of the Dao artifacts would have been much higher. He had initially thought that it was due to his low cultivation, but now it seems that the grade of his flame wasn't good enough. Fortunately, his starry sky sea of consciousness was powerful. Otherwise, he might not have been able to craft middle-grade Dao artifacts. Although Ningqing didn't understand the nirvana flame that junior apprentice Sister Yan spoke about, Ningqing still understood the meaning behind junior apprentice Sister Yan's sudden change of topic. He put away the artifact crafting material ring that junior apprentice Sister Yan had given him and suddenly said, "Junior apprentice Sister Yan, what's wrong with your hand? Let me see." Junior apprentice Sister Yan didn't react and subconsciously stretched out her hand to Ningqing. Ningqing grabbed junior apprentice Sister Yan's hand and looked at it over and over again, until junior apprentice Sister Yan's face turned red. Only then did he put down his hand and speak, "So I made a mistake. Junior apprentice Sister Yan, I'm going up to continue crafting artifacts." Senior apprentice brother Ning, please go ahead. If there's anything here, I'll take care of it. The blush on junior apprentice Sister Yan's face disappeared in a flash, before she returned to her smiling expression. Ningqing nodded and returned to the room. Sure enough, just as he had guessed, he had only sat in the room for a while when junior apprentice Sister Yan hurriedly went out and activated the artifact crafting store's restrictions. Ningqing showed a smile and immediately went downstairs to follow her out. He believed that junior apprentice Sister Yan wouldn't be able to see the spiritual consciousness tag he had placed on her. This junior apprentice Sister Yan couldn't come up with higher-grade artifact crafting materials. Moreover, she had so many low-grade artifact crafting materials, which meant that there was definitely a problem. Junior apprentice Sister Yan didn't know that Ningqing was following her. After she quickly left the Baiqi artifact crafting store, she took a few turns before finally entering a place that Ningqing was familiar with. Transcending Dao artifacts. Ningqing's decision to craft artifacts, as well as his cheap master Zhongli Baiqi, all came from the Transcending Dao Artifacts merchant house. In addition to purchasing a variety of materials and artifacts, this place also sold a variety of artifacts. Junior apprentice Sister Yan definitely didn't come to this place to buy artifacts. Her only purpose was to sell the Dao artifacts in her hands. At this time, how could Ningqing not understand junior apprentice Sister Yan's thoughts? The materials that she had given him before must have been something that she had hidden for herself. Most likely, they were some of the junk materials that Zhongli Baiqi had used for crafting artifacts. She had collected these materials and used them for free work. She actually took out the Dao artifacts that she had refined and sold them for money. This woman truly had a way with words. Just when Ningqing was thinking about whether to follow up and expose junior apprentice Sister Yan, Zhishjun sent him another message. The communication pearl clearly showed that the female cultivator named Qianghua and her senior apprentice sister had just left the Eternal Heaven Starry Sky City alone. Ningqing had something to do and could not follow them. Ningqing immediately replied to Zhishjun. He no longer had the mind to expose junior apprentice Sister Yan, and quickly turned around and rushed out of the city. If we continue to drag things out, I would rather you not enter the immortal Jade Star. Otherwise, how could you, a celestial gatherer cultivator, fight against a bunch of celestial bridge cultivators? Su Qianhan explained in disappointment. Su Dai bit her lip. Whether you agree or not, you have to at least take a look. If you feel that he really can't do it, as long as it makes sense, I will listen. Besides, even if we talk until our mouths are dry, they might not agree. Humph, I'm a Fate Realm powerhouse with a huge starry sky chamber of commerce. How could a puny celestial shatterer cultivator dare to disagree? Su Qianhan glared at him and spoke with some dissatisfaction. If they see that I'm the young mistress of the Flying Star Chamber of Commerce and know that you're a life and death realm expert, they'll agree immediately. I'm not willing to marry such a person. Needless to say, this kind of person is also a spineless coward, Su Dai replied with some dissatisfaction. All right, I'll go along with you. Tell me, when can I find him? Su Qianhan had no choice but to compromise. Su Dai, on seeing her father relent, quickly spoke up. This person is a bit restless. I don't think he will stay in the eternal heaven starry sky city for long. So I asked Lan Sha to wait outside the city. As long as he leaves the city, she can catch him. Su Qianhan looked at his daughter's glowing eyes and shook his head speechlessly. This daughter of his had been spoiled by him. If one did not know about it, they would have thought that it was a marriage kidnapping. By the way, father, is there any news about the wanderer who broke into the 81st floor of the Celestial Scryer Tower? Su Dai, satisfied with her thoughts, immediately turned happy. Su Qianhan shook his head. There's no news. That cultivator seems to have disappeared without a trace. Heavenly Emperor Leveled Heart has also sent people to keep watch around the Celestial Scryer Tower, but they have not received any news about this person. It really is a pity. Su Dai did not think that it was a pity. If that wanderer had only reached the 50th floor, it would have been a pity if she did not see him. That wanderer had reached the 81st floor, which had nothing to do with her. Since he did not come out, what kind of regret was it? By the time Ning Cheng rushed out of the Eternal Heaven Starry Sky City, he had already lost sight of Cheonghua. The Eternal Heaven Starry Sky City was a massive city, while the Culmination Starland looked even more boundless. Without a direction, it would be impossible to find where Cheonghua went. Little Miss guessed it right, you really did come out. A voice with some joy arrived. Ning Cheng looked at the green-robed female cultivator and frowned. He knew this female cultivator, the one who followed Su Dai around. He had nothing to do with Su Dai at all. Moreover, he had paid her 100 million green coins because the other party had crashed into his airship. The second time they met, it was because there were too many people on the public square. At that time, the Taoist priestess from the everlasting sacred shrine had used her imposing aura to push him back and accidentally bumped into her. Ning Cheng could not understand why this woman had sent someone to wait for him here. Seeing Ning Cheng not speaking, the green-robed female cultivator quickly walked up to Ning Cheng and spoke. My name is Lan Sha, and Su Dai is our little Mississippi. You already know her anyway. Now that our association master wants to see you, you can come with me. I don't know your association master. I'm sorry, but I won't go with you. Ning Cheng flatly refused. He could not understand what was going on. Lan Sha whispered to Ning Cheng. I know that you are definitely a rogue cultivator, and this matter will not do you any harm. You will know when you get there. The Flying Celestial Chamber of Commerce is also famous in the Eternal Heaven Starry Sky City. Even if you go there, you will find benefits that you can't even imagine. Ning Cheng did not even think about going to the Flying Celestial Chamber of Commerce. Instead, he thought of another thing and asked with a gentle tone. Lan Sha, have you been waiting for me here? Yes, I have been waiting for you here. Little Miss said that you are a restless person and would definitely come out of the city. Now it seems that Little Miss did not guess wrong. Lan Sha showed a smile. Apparently, she felt very proud of her Little Miss's intelligence. The last time I was at the Culmination Public Square, I was suppressed by a Taoist priestess. You should also know about it, right? Ning Cheng quickly asked. Lan Sha spoke up with disdain. Of course I know about it. You don't have to worry about that woman. Our association master is not afraid of her at all. Ning Cheng felt shocked in his heart. That Taoist priestess was definitely a powerhouse. She might even be a powerhouse above the life and death realm. Since the association master of the Flying Celestial Chamber of Commerce did not fear her, then presumably she was not someone easy to deal with. Did you see the two female cultivators who followed that Taoist priestess out just now? Ning Cheng seized the opportunity to continue to ask. He knew that Lan Sha understood who he was talking about. Initially, He had clashed with that Taoist priestess because of Qianghua. Moreover, Lan Sha was also present at the public square. I saw it. Not long ago, the two of them passed by me. I am too lazy to pay attention to such rude people. It's just a few words. Is there a need to act like this? If someone said that they liked me, then I would be very happy. That Taoist priestess simply made a big fuss over a minor issue. Lan Sha spoke with disdain. When Ningcheng heard this, his impression of Lan Sha immediately soared. That's right, just saying that they liked each other was not a bad thing. Junior apprentice sister Lan Sha, we really think alike. By the way, did you see which direction they went? Although Ningcheng was anxious in his heart, his tone was still very calm. Lan Sha immediately replied, I am too lazy to see where they went. But when the two of them passed by me, they said something about the changing earth nunnery. It was an invitation or something. As for the rest, I do not know. Ningcheng felt a burst of excitement in his heart. He did not think that there would be such good news. He did not ask Lan Sha where the changing earth nunnery was. If he had asked, even if Lan Sha was a fool, she would have understood his meaning. Why don't you come with me to the Flying Celestial Chamber of Commerce? I still don't know your name. Lan Sha and Ningcheng chatted enthusiastically. Junior apprentice sister Lan Sha, do you have a map of the culmination starland? Ningcheng did not answer Lan Sha's question directly. Lan Sha's thoughts were not as complicated as Ningcheng's. She did not hesitate to take out a jade strip and handed it to Ningcheng. This is... Ningcheng's spiritual consciousness swept through the jade strip and found that the culmination starland was boundless, with all kinds of starry sky cities, celestial river cities, corner fortresses, sects and makeshift markets. Ningcheng's spiritual consciousness casually swept through the area, but did not find the changing earth nunnery. Instead, he found a changing earth mountain. Ningcheng put away the jade strip and spoke to Lan Sha with an apologetic tone. Junior apprentice sister Lan Sha, I have to go out for a few things. I will definitely thank you in the future. After saying that, Ningcheng did not wait for Lan Sha's answer. He quickly left the forbidden space, brought out a flight-type weapon, and soon disappeared without a trace. Lan Sha stared blankly at Ningcheng's disappearing figure. At this time she finally reacted. Ningcheng should have gone to chase after the two female cultivators. She suddenly frowned and gave a snort. Sure enough, the harder it is to get, the better it is. I will definitely tell little miss about it. Ningcheng asked 7 or 8 people along the way, but none of them knew where the changing earth nunnery was. In order to not delay any further, Ningcheng gave up on the flight-type weapon and directly used the twin wings of the heavenly clouds to fly towards the changing earth mountains. If he could not find the changing earth nunnery, then he would have to go to the changing earth mountains. If he found the wrong place, then he would have to wait for the next opportunity to explain it to Qianghua. The changing earth mountains were millions of miles away from the nearest corner city. Although a distance of millions of miles was not too far for a starry sky cultivator, it was still a subtle distance. Because at this distance, apart from top-notch powerhouses, ordinary spiritual consciousness would find it difficult to sweep through. In a starland, as long as one's spiritual consciousness could not sweep through, it would be a blind spot. What a beautiful place! Jingyi stood outside the changing earth mountains and sighed in amazement. The rolling green and soft white clouds mixed together. If one could hear the sound of flowing waterfalls and the occasional bird chirping, no one would dislike this kind of place. Qianghua, who stood next to Jingyi, also exclaimed, "It really is beautiful." After sighing, she asked, "Senior apprentice Sister Yi, do you think Uncle Master Mi Chun will accept Sacred Master's invitation and return to the eternal heaven starry sky city with us?" You're tuning in to the Limei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.